Ahoy! Ahoy! Ho ho! Ha hee ha ha ho 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 ho! Ah! Ha ha! There we go. Super Mario Odyssey. It's no masterpiece. Hmm. So we're sure that this is not the same guy as Matthew Matosis. It's a different Irish guy. Hi. Hmm. Hello. I I was procrastinating on something. Hello, 1968. I was procrastinating on something for like 2 weeks, and I didn't realize how much it was actually affecting my quality of life until today. And then I was like, I should just do it. Because sometimes you forget that you're past the procrastination phase in your life. Sometimes it just doesn't really register. So I was like, wait a minute. I don't do this anymore. Why am I doing this? And so I stopped procrastinating. Now there's still, whatever the thing is I need to get done still needs to get done. But I've at least taken the step that I can right now to get it done. And I'm going to have to, wait for a call or whatever tomorrow. I don't know. But yeah. I was watching your video on mechanical animals earlier, and even though I've listened to it a thousand times, you've pointed out things I've never noticed. I think that's going to be the case for anyone who analyzes a Marilyn Manson album to the level of uh, like making a 6 hour video about it. I think you're bound to find things that you didn't think about before. You know, like if you've especially if you've never actually written up an analysis of it yourself, if you just listened to it and whatnot and read the lyrics, thought about it, but you haven't actually written anything down, then you're gonna miss stuff. The writing process is what kind of teaches, I think. And that's my thing with making my YouTube videos is I I use my YouTube videos as a way to teach myself things, and it's a lot. You get, I think, if you make something out of your learning experience, you can get a better understanding of it, because it forces you to organize your thoughts in a way that you wouldn't have had to otherwise. That's, I think, a big reason why essays in school are important, even for classes that have nothing to do with writing per se. It's important to be able to synthesize an understanding of a subject, and to do that, you kind of have to. It's not just demonstrating that you can do that through writing. It's actually, I think, the process of writing is what does that. Looking good and sophisticated this evening. Well, thank you. That's a good point. Your analytical writing is very impressive. Side note, I was very pleased with the new album. I'm a big Manson fan. Well, today, just a few minutes ago before starting the stream, I recorded my reaction to Meet Me in Purgatory, the second to last song I have to react to on that album. I have one more that I haven't listened to, which is Sacrifice of the Mass. So you shall be seeing my reaction to Meet Me in Purgatory on my channel soon, probably maybe tonight, could be tomorrow. And so that'll be fun. I actually did like the song quite a lot. It's one of my favorite songs on the album so far. So But I am excited to hear Sacrifice of the Mask because I've heard a lot of good things about it. But, yeah, I was watching this video the other day, and in a bad state of mind, a state of mind that was, I think, influenced by that aforementioned procrastination. But now, I'm done procrastinating, so I'm feeling a lot better. And, yeah, we have this video, Super Mario Odyssey. It's no masterpiece. We've just gotten to the point in the video where I remember just losing my mind and hating it the first time I tried to watch it many years ago, so let's continue.
Mushroom Kingdom is the first world in Odyssey. It's right...
Yeah, so I just hate this whole section. I hate what he does here. He just does this whole bit, this totally deadpan, boring. You get the joke, like, in the first 5 seconds, and then he keeps going and going. Like, how long does he talk about Mushroom Kingdom? I think he talks about it for like 5 minutes, and you're like, come on. So let's just hear it.
There on the leftmost side of the kingdom list at the beginning. And it makes sense that Mario would start out in a relaxing version of Peach's home before getting abducted. It also serves as some heavy-hitting nostalgia for those who have played Mario 64. Since it is the first level, it's understandable that most of the moons here are simple and straightforward. That being said, even here at...
It's not the first level, by the way, if you've never played this game. It's the last... It's actually... No, it's like after you already beat the game. You beat the story... And then you get this as an extra bonus thing added on to the end. And then you get like a second... Like, you get basically a second game tacked on. Because it was like a short game the way it was originally made. And then they like make a whole second game using the same worlds with a totally different climax that's way harder. And so this is like the beginning of the second phase of the game when you think that you're done with the game and you're like, wow, that was fun, but it's like, it's over already. And then you're like, whoa, no, it's not. So that's the idea here. This is not the first stage, but he's pretending like it is so that he can make some stupid point.
At the start, I think you'll agree that they could have stepped things up a bit. Here are some examples.
I forgive you.
You get moons for finding some seeds and carrying them back to a pot for them to grow into a moon. There's no special obstacle or enemy that tries to stop you. It's simply find the seed, plant, come back later for the moon. Around here, there's also a rabbit.
Yeah, and the challenge is finding the seed. You gotta keep your eyes peeled in this game for things to collect, and seeds are one of them. Once you see that there are 4 flower pots, you're like, oh man, I gotta find 4 seeds on this island? Okay, let me look for him.
Rabbit that's bouncing around for you to catch for a moon. You can climb to the roof of the castle for a moon that's waiting at the top of a flagpole. Likewise, there's a moon for throwing your hat on the shiny part of a tree here, and another for jumping on top of the shop and speaking to Captain Toad. No other requirement, you just talk to him. There's a timing challenge involving riding a scooter to get a moon before it despawns. This is also the only area in this kingdom that has enemies in it, a group of Goombas. You can possess these Goombas for 2 different moons. First by scaring a Toad away from where he's guarding a moon, which you figure out by simply speaking to him, and another by stacking Goombas to reach a Lady Goomba after draining the castle's moat. Pretty simple. This area also has you eating a lot of apples as Yoshi for 3 different moons, which is really repetitive, but again, it's the starting area. Just like those 4 moons you got from planting seeds, it's early on, so it's forgivable. Same for the moon that you get by leading around a dog to areas where he'll dig. Eventually you'll find the right spot that will spawn a moon instead of coins. It's tedious, but a cute way to get people to adjust to the
you're
controls
saying that
this early
something
on in
else
the
is
game.
tedious.
Just
Great.
like this moon you get from trying out the Cappy Hat throwing move on this flower field.
Okay, I have to explain why he's calling stars moons. It's because the game calls them moons. So, yeah, he's calling them moons, but they're stars. But here's what's going on. In the game, they're moons, except for in this kingdom, but they're still called moons, and there's even a part where Cappy, when you get your first power star that's actually a moon, it says you got a moon, and then Cappy's like, I guess moons are shaped differently in some places. So the game is aware of this, and so, like, when you're just watching this video and you haven't played the game in a long time, or you, like, or you've never played it, then it looks like he's an idiot. He's like, what are these? He's, like, talking about moons, and you're like, what? These aren't moons, they're stars. But the game calls them moons. That's no moon. That's a space station. That's more Irish than this guy. It's so weird. This guy, you can tell that he's Irish or something, but he doesn't sound, he just, like, his accent is the subtlest thing ever. Someone made a kind of expose on Joseph and his kind of reviews a couple of months ago. That was very well done. It's a 2-hour video. Really? That sounds interesting. I should look into that. Greg Glinstone. Oh, okay. Greg Glinstone. I think I'll remember that name. That's a good one. That's a fun one. Sort of like Aragon, how he just took the word dragon and then changed the D with an E. Greg Glinstone. Although it had the other effect of making it sound an awful lot like Aragorn from Lord of the Rings, which didn't really beat the unoriginality charge. The video is called The Lost Art of Video Game Critique. Okay. Lost Art of Video Game Critique, Greg Glinstone. Sounds good. He sounds bored all the time. You never have your answer for my alternative to the dog scenario. Well, okay, but the problem I had with it was that, like, it wasn't clear what the terms were. Like, Dogwarts has very clear terms. Even if you really want to, like, pick it apart, like, it's very clear. Like, you don't need to pick it apart very much because, like everything has an answer. But I don't know. I could never figure out what your alternative was.
There are 2 moons from doing the same race twice with some friendly Koopa Troopas. There are many of these races in the game, and I think this is the shortest, easiest one since it's the first level. You run from here up to the castle entrance, and that's it. The way the game introduces the 2D transitions is also at the same level of accessibility. You follow
and it's kind of a joke based on the whole Koopa the Quick thing from Mario 64, how, like, the big joke of that is that it's the second star you get in the game, and he's like, I'm blazing fast, want to race me to the top, and then he's really slow. Now, that being said, it can sometimes, especially if you're new at the game, it can be difficult to beat Koopa the Quick. It's not always just a total breeze. I remember the first time I played it, I was with a friend, and he was like, oh yeah, this guy says he's so fast, but he's actually slow. I still lost to Koopa the Quick. So even Chugga Conroy, when he played through Mario 64 on DS, he lost to Koopa the Quick. So it is possible. But yeah, it's kind of a play on that, a reference to that game, which I find fun. And also, you know, the races are different when you, even though it's the same course layout. One thing I like about it is that they give you 2 different moons for these races. One of them, you just face against the 4 regular Koopas, and then one of them, there's this special gold Koopa who's, like, smarter and better at racing than the other ones. So if you figured out how to beat the other ones, then there's still that extra challenge of, oh, you got to figure out now how to beat the gold Koopa. What is the gold Koopa doing differently that the other ones aren't doing? Now, you know, it's still not that hard to beat, but it is kind of a nice little extra challenge, I would say. It's a really good video. I think you'll enjoy it. All right. The alternative was just how degenerate would you actually be? Yeah, I don't know what the terms are. Like, what was the scenario? Add it to the stream /react list. Sounds interesting. Yeah, I might. I don't know. I'll check it out later. I'll check it out after stream, and see if I want to react to it or not, or if I just want to watch it. It might just be something I put on for myself.
a straight path while collecting musical notes for your moon. There's a moon for collecting 100 coins to buy at the same store that we saw earlier. There's also a moon for purple coins that unlocks a Mario 64 outfit for you to wear. This grants you access to a room guarded by another Toad who says he wants to see the outfit when you speak to him. Inside is a memorization test for the order these chests spawn, and another moon for throwing your hat onto something. This time it's the star in the middle of this room where the Haunted Mansion entrance was in Mario 64. And don't worry, we're almost done now. There's a moon for finding 6 sheep in the level and herding them back to the pen with hat throws and running at them. It would be ridiculously tedious anywhere else, but again, we're at the start of the game, so this is just practice with the controls. Same for the music Toad that teaches you how to...
tedious? I mean, I found it fun. I love bopping those sheep around. I love it when you throw your hat at the sheep and they go bah! Way up in the air. That's fun. And the fact that you're supposed to do it and it's not just something you can do for laughs, like there's an actual goal to it, is fun. And sometimes it can be a challenge. Like they go up to the edge and then you have to figure out how to get them away from the edge so that when you hit them with their hat, they don't fall off. I don't know. It's a simple little challenge, but it's, about like, there's something satisfying about collecting all of them.
Play different music tracks by requesting a specific one from you. You get a consolation moon for doing this tutorial, I guess. Inside the castle...
You've heard of golden showers. Now let me introduce you to Roman showers. I don't think the Romans had showers, did they? Back in the old days. Of course they do now. The race mini games were fun. Yeah, they could be fun. He seems to be very boring and insincere. Kind of, yeah. I don't know. I'm curious because I think that I really want to hear him talk more about Mario 64 because that's the Mario game I have the most familiar with. I've played all the other ones except for Galaxy 2 in the main series, but I haven't played them all the way through. I've just kind of dabbled in them. But Mario 64 I've actually completed from start to finish, and same with Mario Odyssey. So I think those are my two favorites, because if I've actually completed them from start to finish, that means I love both of them. Yeah, I'm curious about what he thinks. Like, what about Mario 64 does he like so much in contrast, to this? Like, what about this really failed versus 64 excelled to him? That's what I'm curious about.
Castle itself, you get a moon for noticing that a tile is sticking up from the floor and ground pounding it down. This
Roman shower is an intimate act.
I think you do a series of 10 or so tiles in a row here for a moon, which is probably teaching you to ground pound or something, or to look out for things and notice them.
Bathhouses.
There's also another nostalgia moon here for looking up at the light like you did in 64 for the
very wholesome and completely family-friendly act.
Unfortunately,
cool.
Odyssey just gives you a moon for this instead of leading to something to do.
See, that was a missed opportunity. I agree. Like, because in 64, you look up at the ceiling when the light's shining down, and you get... which took me forever to figure out, by the way, when I was playing as a kid. I don't even know if I did figure it out. I think I had to Google it. But you look up at the ceiling and you see, it takes you into a new world where you get to where the flying cap, and you get to pound the switch that unlocks all the power-ups. For the longest fucking time playing that game, I never figured out how to do that. And so for most of... It was like half of the game was unplayable to me. And so I'm really... Yeah, it's like... That's one of those things where if you just don't have the creative mind to think of that solution, you're not going to know it. But it was a missed opportunity that they didn't try to do some kind of tribute and recreation of that. That could have been fun.
On the same level as this shrine in 64 for some reason. I don't get that one. Finally, there are some challenge rooms around the kingdom. One is a picture match minigame, which is charming and fun, but not
Luigi's
really
Mansion.
anything to
Never
do with
played
Mario
that
platforming.
one.
It's
Kinda
one of
looks
many,
boring to me.
mini games in Odyssey. Another shrine has you eating more fruit as Yoshi, so I think that's 5 moons here that you get from eating fruit. There are a handful more of these challenge rooms, but for now let's move forward from this and show you one of the final levels in the game and make a comparison from how simple the game starts to how complex it is by the end. which means that it's finally time for me to drop the act and get to the punchline. Mushroom
Thank you.
Kingdom isn't the first level in Mario Odyssey. It's
And everyone who's played Mario Odyssey knows that, and so it's just utterly tedious and awful to listen to this shit when it's not funny at all.
actually the second to last one. You get to
Second to last one? I mean, no, it's a different structure. It's not the same structure as a game where it's totally linear, you get from beginning to end and then you're done. This one is different. You start in Cap Kingdom and then go to Bowser's Kingdom and then the moon, defeat Bowser. The story is over at that point. You've beat the main story part of the game, and then it surprises you by being like, hold on, we're not done. It's not supposed to be like ramping up more and more until the climax. The climax already happened. This is your reward for beating the climax. So, and then there's another climax after that, which is even harder. So if you were complaining about the extra content not being as difficult, well, that complaint is invalidated by the fact that the second climax is really hard. And that took me like 3 weeks to beat. I remember I was playing that all the time. It took me like weeks to get through that. So, there you go.
Mushroom Kingdom after beating the first part of the game and saving Peach, which means you have to do Cap Kingdom.
Let's see. What else is on the watch list for tonight? Well, we got some other stuff available. We have this Wicker Man video that I was kind of interested in. We have some What If Alt Hist. Second part of the Donald Trump is not a fascist video. Non-compete, the PewDiePie pipeline. I kind of was curious about that. We have this one where the cis, the good guys, we could watch. And then a bunch of Tick history stuff. Just a shitload of Tick history. Oh, and then this really long Has Been Hotel one that I've been dreading watching. So, we could go in any direction, I guess. Luigi's Mansion is not boring. You take that back right now. LOL, just kidding. Yeah, I've just never played it. It never looked very interesting to me. Luigi's Mansion boss fights are pretty fun. To me, Luigi's Mansion just looks dull because you're just walking around this dark house, just like being all scared and sucking up ghosts. Like, who gives a fuck? It doesn't look fun. It's not a platformer, so I don't see what's so fun about it. I don't know. Can someone explain to me how Luigi's Mansion is fun? Because it might be really fun. It just doesn't look fun. Joseph's community has kind of turned against him lately because he cannot take criticism. There was some drama during a stream. He is bad at games sometimes and blames it on the games. Okay, that's fun. Dude, that was fun when Vegan Gains, I remember, started playing that new God of War game where it has like Norse gods in it. And he like made that video where he was mad about it. And people were saying that he just isn't good enough. And he's like, no, I am good enough. It's just that the game was too hard. And I can kind of get that because I felt the same way about Bayonetta. I hated Bayonetta for multiple reasons. But one of the reasons I hated Bayonetta is because there was no difficulty setting that felt reasonable to me. Because the easy setting was so easy that you could get through it no problem to the point where it was just like totally boring, just button mashing, moving from one room to the next with no actual fucking challenge. And then the hard, the next setting up was like just brutal, and I felt like there should be something in between because I was getting bored either way. Like, either I get bored because I can't do anything, or I get bored because I can do everything, you know? So sometimes that can happen. Beating climax. Yep. Dirt. Arr. Luigi's Mansion is a great game. Have you played DMC? I don't know what that is. I've heard of an MC named DMC.
Cascade Kingdom, Sand Kingdom, Wooded, Lake, Cloud, Lost. Yes, I am saying them all to emphasize the point. Metro, Snow, Sea.
Didn't he already do this? Like, last time I watched this video, he already did this bit. Why is he doing it again?
Side Luncheon, Ruined Bowser's, and Moon Kingdom, you have to collect over 120 moons along the way to progress, more than the entirety of stars in Mario 64. All those and the final fight with Bowser before you get to do Mushroom Kingdom with all of those simple beginner tier moons that I just went through. Also, I'm sorry if that
but
was
it's
tedious
relaxing.
to go through.
It's relax. It's like you've made it to heaven. You've gone through hell, and then you're in heaven, and you just get to chill out and just explore this fun little place. Like, that's the whole vibe that it's going for. It's not supposed to be challenging, and it wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't be as fun if the Mushroom Kingdom were the hardest kingdom in the game. I mean, really, do you want the mushroom? Do you want like home ground to be the most challenging aspect? No, it should be. It should be a little bit lighter in tone.
For anyone who's already played the game, but I figure if you have, then you're used to TDM already and shouldn't be too bothered by it.
Wow. Fuck you. Honestly, fuck you. I'm gonna make this video tedious because I assume that everyone else thought the game was as tedious as I did. Yikes.
Now, before anyone accuses me of cherry picking, I want to point out that there are 7 other challenges I didn't go through in the Mushroom Kingdom that you can do on your first visit there. These are tougher moons to get, however, 6 of them are rematches against bosses you already fought on your way here. This isn't new content, it's tweaked, recycled content that's been made slightly more difficult, raised to the level it should have been the first time through in my...
Yeah, that's a good criticism. I think if they made them harder the second time around, they could have just made it that difficult the first time around and made it a more compelling boss fight, making you feel better for having beaten it, and then just skip to the second time around. I actually think that's a good criticism. I think they should have done it, but that's kind of, I think the philosophy of Nintendo is very, very child-oriented now, so they're afraid to do anything too challenging. And so if the developers come up with an idea of like this, like, let's make this a little bit challenging. It's not even that hard. Like, you can do this pretty easily. It's not even that hard, but it's just a little bit harder. Then they get worried and they're like, oh, we need to make it easier. But then, I don't know. They should have just made it hard to begin with. Because, like I said, it's not Bayonetta level hard. Like, you can do this just fine.
Opinion. The other challenge is a really good 2D section that has a moving background that you need to stay in, or else you'll be ejected back into 3D and fail the level.
Yeah, this section I hate because it is a total pain. But I respect that it's well crafted and it makes you want to do it. You want to get through it.
It's a cool idea that could have also been used for possessions, some sort of field that banishes Cappy from possessing an enemy so you have to play around it. This is, in my judgment, the only good area in the entirety of the Mushroom Kingdom that is also new content for this world. I also like the memory minigame, but as I said, that has nothing to do with Mario's moveset. It could function just as well as a browser game or side content in any game, really. Every kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey is like the Mushroom Kingdom, an overwhelming amount of shitty filler moons and only a rare few that are worth your time. Now, obviously, I can't go through all of them in a video like this, is what I would usually say right about now, but no, we're...
What? Are you going to go through all of them?
Doing all of them for this video, so buckle up and hold on to your...
Why? What's the point? Why is he gonna do this?
The juice box. First up, that tutorial I mentioned with playing music for Toad, you do that 5 times in 5 separate kingdoms. That riveting task of leading the dog around to dig in different spots until you finally randomly stumble onto one that has the moon buried underneath it, you do that 5 different times too. These are the least offensive ones, by the way. We're starting slow and ramping up here. The trend you're going to see is that next to nothing in Odyssey is ever done once. Nothing is pure. Every idea, enemy, and boss is copy and pasted and then copy and pasted again, usually with no changes, so you're always encountering the same version of the same task instead of it being built on in any way.
I don't really get that impression. Like, even this one that he's talking about, I remember... Like I don't remember any others that
it's just
were
the background
quite
that looks
the
different.
same.
Remember the seeds we found?
There were a lot of there were a lot of ideas that are really cool that they reused, and I'm glad. And they reused them in different ways, like the whole zipper function. You can possess the zipper. And there's this one really cool one. I think it might be in the Lake Kingdom, where you go through a door and it's a challenge, and you have to like make platforms by unzipping them from the wall, and they fall down. Like, that was really fun. And those little challenge doors and little challenge pipe holes are fun because they each have 2 moons apiece, and you know that you have to get both of them, but you don't always know how to get that second one. And there's a lot of those that I still haven't gotten. I still cannot figure out how to get them. So a lot of the challenges is just figuring out what you have to do to get something that you know is there, but you just can't find it, or you even if you can see it, you don't know how to get up to it. So yeah, there is a lot of recycled content. There is a lot of doing the same basic principle over and over in different settings, but there also is just a lot of unique exploration, I think, in each kingdom. And I don't think it makes sense to reduce it all in that way. Like, there's a lot less of that, I think, in Mario 64, where you only have 7 stars per painting. Now, each of them are more unique, except for the red coin ones. Those are all the same. And there is a little bit of recycled content, I think, in 64. But there's only 120 moons in 64, unless you play the DS version, in which case it's 150, which is better. But I think this game compensates for that by having like over 800 moons, some of which you're going to get, not others. And so it has exploration in the same way 64 did, but then it also has a lot of this repetitive stuff that this guy finds tedious. Not everyone's going to find tedious. Let's see. Devil May Cry. No, I've never played that. That's a pretty profound thought. Bored with nothing but with too many options. By the way, Dirt, I sent you an email a little while back. It's regarding your mechanical and animals analysis. Well, I check my email every day. So maybe I read it and didn't have anything to say in response. Because, yeah, I check these days, I do check that email all the time, because I'm now actually starting to have to, like, do things in my life, and so I'm checking my main email, and while I'm there, I check my Forever Dirt email. What about Super Mario Sunshine? I like that game. I haven't finished it, though. I've only done the first part of it. It's difficult, though. It's a lot more difficult than Mario Odyssey. I think it's more difficult than Mario 64, too. Part of that is a problem. Flood is not always the easiest thing to use. It can be very difficult to aim. I'm glad, though, that I have the Switch version, because the Switch version has a fixed, not a fixed camera in the sense that it's fast in one place, but it fixes the camera. The GameCube version, as far as I could tell, only allowed you to rotate the camera in one way, which is the opposite way that Nintendo does it these days, and it's infuriating. It's impossible to get used to, and so they totally changed it on the Switch version, which I love. It's a hack and slash adventure game like Bayonetta. Not bad, easier than Bayonetta. Fun series. Okay. How tedious? What's the point? Yeah, I know. I really don't think he needed to go through all of them. It's like he wants to punish us for liking the game. Goombas. I didn't feel they were too samey. They all seemed pretty original to me in terms of challenge. I don't know if you already watched it, but there's a channel called Nettles, that is doing a series on the Channel Awesome document that the X crew released in 2018, basically debunking every lie or petty issue that was in there, which most of the people didn't read. That sounds fascinating, because I've always thought that there were things in that document that seemed kind of dumb. And so I'm curious about all that's going to be in there. Everyone seemed to just totally take it for granted, but I always felt a little bit skeptical of it. That being said, I don't think you can save the reputation of Mike Michaud. I think his reputation is pretty dashed. And so I assume that creator probably is going to come out with the impression that, yeah, Mike Michaud still is quite unprofessional and not a very good boss or leader. But I am curious. It's because you said you didn't know what the symbol on the back of Mechanical Animals meant. It's a reference to the Bible. If your hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. Yeah, I think I've heard that before. Yeah, I remember seeing that message on my email. I don't know if, because I can see that being referenced in the music video for "I Don't Like the Drugs, But the Drugs Like Me," because that's where he does get his hand cut off. But on the back of the CD case, I don't really see that, because it's not one arm is stunted. It's actually one arm is normal length and one arm is longer. So I don't really see the connection there. Carnival, like the game, that was a badass arcade shooter. Ooh, Channel Awesome stuff. Now that's some good fodder for you. Add it to the... I think I will watch that one on stream. Yeah. That's Nettles. Okay. Nettles. Try to remember that.
And carried all the way back to the pots to plant them, you might not fully grasp how much time that takes, and how boring it is to carry them across the entire world to plant them. Do you want to guess how many times Odyssey asks you to do that across the whole game? How about we channel our inner Jigsaw and play a game? Pause the video, scroll down to the comment section, and type out, "This is my guess for how many plant a seed moons there are in Odyssey." I'll give you a hint, it's more than 5. Okay, all done? All good? Unpaused? The answer is 18. There are 18 of these seeds to find throughout all the kingdoms, with no challenge other than to waddle your way back to the pots while carrying them. In Luncheon Kingdom,
And then there's an extra element of fun there, where once you plant them, you have to wait for them to sprout and bloom before you're able to collect the moon. And so it's like, oh, I know that that's there. I've done it. I just have to wait for my reward. And that can be fun, too.
golden turnips instead that
Gives
you
an
need to
extra
throw
bit
into a
of variety
cooking pot, and
to
then wait
moon
for the moon to
collection.
spawn and fly out before you can go and pick it up and watch
You
the
don't get every
Got a
moon
Moon jingle.
instantaneously.
Which brings us to all the prep work that went into this video. See, this is actually my second video on Super Mario Odyssey. The other one is on my second channel and is all of the "You Got a Moon" animations strung together to see how much time it takes. The answer to that is 72 minutes if you get all 880 moons. You might think that making that was a waste of time, and you're half right. I was collating all the moons in Adobe Premiere anyway, and
Wait, is it only 7 minutes? Did he say 7 or 70?
at all 808 time it takes. The answer to that is 72 minutes.
72 minutes, okay. Yeah, I mean, that is one thing that is a bit tedious about this game. I'm not gonna lie. The "You Got a Moon" animation, it kind of sucks. It kind of blows. I mean, at least it's brief. But even just that one brief little thing interrupting the action, it does bug me. I do kind of agree with this.
If you get all 880 moons. You might think that making that was a waste of time, and you're half right. I was collating all the moons in Adobe
Mike Michaud is a pretty incompetent boss, no argument there. No, Carnival, like the Emerson, Lake, and Palmer song Carnival 9. I'm multitasking, I'm watching Hollow play Silent Hill 2 and watching Dirt do Dirt stuff.
Premiere anyway and decided to make the video while doing that. The other criticism people might have is that other games, especially other Mario games, have a lot of wasted time when achieving things too. Mario 64 and Sunshine kick you out of levels, so do the Galaxy games. There are the...
I don't have a problem with being kicked out of the levels in Mario 64. I think that's fine. People complain about that, but I think that adds to the experience. I think you want to get out of the level when you've completed it, because getting the power stars is, I think, a much bigger deal in that game than getting the moons in Mario Odyssey. And that's one of the ways maybe Mario Odyssey kind of struggles to live up to 64, is that it doesn't really have anything comparable to getting a power star. Because the moons are just way more abundant. There's just way more of them. So, yeah, it just, it's not... it's not as special when you get one. But that being said, not every power star in Mario 64 is all that interesting, you know?
Flagpole celebrations in 3D World, there's a running trend of this stuff in this series. Well, first off, aside from Mario Sunshine, those games only do that at the end of a structured piece of content. You have a goal, you're working your way there, you succeed, here's your celebration, enjoy your star or moon or shine sprite or whatever it is. In Odyssey, these interruptions happen constantly since you're given moons for just about everything. Later on, you're even given moons for getting moons.
This was stupid.
Yes, you heard that correct.
I thought this was really dumb. I hate this little feature in the game. The Archivist Toadette. They should not have put this in.
These moons that are all over the place.
I also think it was bad that they allowed you to buy moons after you're done with the main story mode. I thought that was bad too.
Take you out of the flow of gameplay. 3D.
I understand buying one. That's fun. But being able to buy as many as you want sucks.
World had them too and did not stop the game for a celebration jingle when you picked them up. It only did that at the flagpole at the end of every level. You are free to keep moving and not lose whatever flow of movement or momentum you are currently in. Another way of looking at this is that the celebrations you get in Odyssey for beating bosses or for reaching the end of a challenge room never bothered me. It was the hundreds and hundreds of filler moon celebrations that bogged every...
They bothered me though, because sometimes you feel like it's not even worth it. Like sometimes you get a random moon and it feels like nothing, but then it gives you the full shebang of whirling around in that animation. Another thing I don't like is when you go through the paintings in this game and you have that whole animation where Mario's going wah through all the purple stuff. Boring. Totally boring, because you do it like a billion times, and you do it when you go into the painting and then when you go back the other way. Like you have to see it twice in a row every time.
Everything down. There's one partway through a challenge room that interrupts gameplay so severely that it has to remove your speed boost flower power up and make you pick up another one after it's over in order to continue the level. The majority of the prep work for this video was cataloging every moon in the game to find out exactly how many of them are a waste of time and or repeated
Collecting
content.
them felt cheap sometimes.
As you can see from these categories, there's a ton of repetition. Depressingly enough, only 6 moons out of 880 ended up being put under a miscellaneous jumping group. These were for jumping gauntlets or killing enemies in the world that weren't tied to another type of challenge. There were only 6 in the whole game. Everything else fit under these categories and labels. The most common counter-argument that I've seen in defense of Odyssey's filler moons is that you don't have to do them all, just like you don't have to do all of the Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild. There are 880, and you get to pick and choose which ones. This argument is mostly correct. Just like I said in my Breath of the Wild video, there are so many Korok seeds in the game to cast a wide net so that exploration can be consistently rewarded for observant players. It's side content that you're meant to do only a portion of. There are a few key differences between Odyssey and Breath of the Wild though. First of all, it was funny to realize how much the two games resemble each other. Shrines and Korok seeds are big parts of Zelda. Shrines are doors you find in the world that lead to a separate, instanced area with a challenge and a reward in it. Korok seeds are strewn all over the map and found often if you're hunting for them.
Well, they were developing both games
Odyssey
at the same
has challenge
time.
rooms that are doors, pipes, and rockets that you find in the worlds that lead to a separate, instanced area with a challenge and a reward in it. Filler moons are strewn all over the map and found often if you're hunting for them. The challenge rooms also have the same problem of a lack of complexity when it comes to exploring their ideas, but we'll get to that later on. However, despite these similarities, it's easy to see that Breath of the Wild has a lot more going on. It has a lot more involved combat, loot and equipment, crafting and cooking, a much larger play area in its overworld, a climbing and gliding mechanic, special powers that are, to me, way more interesting, and it spends a lot of time on its story. If Korok seeds are side content, this is what they're placed to the side of. Mario Odyssey has none of these things. Finding moons is the main objective, and most of them are on the same level
Mario
as these
Odyssey
Korok
has Cappy possessing different creatures, which is a big deal. It does. It totally changes the gameplay. I know in the last time we were watching this, he was criticizing that, but I didn't think his criticism was very valid. His criticism was that it restricts Mario's moveset. But the power-ups in Zelda also restrict your moveset. Like, if you're moving something with Magnesis, you can't also then run and jump and fight enemies at the same time. You have to pick what you're doing at any given moment. So I think, yeah, it's a lame criticism to say it restricts your moveset. So yeah, that's a huge part of the gameplay, is possessing different creatures and then using those a totally different moveset. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of divided between the moons where you have to find something and you have to do platforming challenges to get to them, and the moons where you have to basically do repetitive tasks. And I think it mixes them together pretty well. But it's definitely a simpler game than Breath of the Wild. But I think that, a Mario game, it kind of makes sense for it to be like that. Like, a lot of the stars from Mario 64 were also very simple. Very obvious. So, yeah, I don't really see how this game is particularly failing in a way that 64 didn't, especially in regards to its simplicity.
In Breath of the Wild. If anything is side content, it's the purple coins placed in each kingdom that really could function just the same as any other moon hiding spot if Nintendo had decided to switch places with them. There are tons of moons sitting out in the open just like these coins are. Way more than you might think. Now, you could argue that the moons are just there as a carrot dangled to have the player perform acrobatic feats with Mario's controls, just like the objectives in Breath of the Wild are there to push you toward fighting and exploring with Link. But that's a poor way of excusing that this is all there is to do in Odyssey. All side quests are for moons, all main quests are for moons, all exploration leads to moons, all shrines lead to moons. Everything leads to moons, most of which barely require any in-depth usage of Mario's movement. Just imagine if everything in Breath of the Wild led to a Korok seed. Still, it wouldn't be fair to say that you have to collect all 880 of these moons, just like I'd say finding
there is
70 to
something,
100
Breath
stars.
of the Wild was smart the way it handled its collectibles, because in addition to the Korok seeds, which are not very exciting, the the shrine challenges allowed you to power up your stamina and your hearts. Although it's not really fair to compare moons to Korok seeds, I think, because there's a much, I think, greater variety in presentation of moons. Whereas Koroks, there's like, I don't know, 10 different things that could be a Korok. And once you've done all of them once, you know how to do the rest. And so they just repeat incessantly like that. And they're not all that interesting. This is more like a more accurate sort of comparison than Koroks would be like if everything in Zelda, and this is kind of the point he's making, if everything in Zelda, like you finish a shrine and you get a Korok, you finish a divine beast and maybe you get 3 Korok seeds, you know? And I understand why that's not quite as rewarding as the way they set it up in that game. And perhaps that is a fair criticism for Mario Odyssey. Perhaps they could have done more to kind of make the bigger stuff feel bigger in comparison to the smaller stuff. They could have thought it out a little bit better. But yeah, it's not quite as tedious as it sounds with everything being a Korok, because that would be tedious.
In Mario 64 is enough to be done, and finding the same amount of shrines in Breath of the Wild is enough to be done. For Odyssey, I think this number sits at 500 moons. It's a lot higher because the maximum is also a lot higher. Relatively, however, it's about the same as these other examples. Plus, it makes a lot of sense when you see the ending after acquiring 500 moons. It brings the game back around to where Mario and Cappy started, with them possessing another frog, the first thing they ever possessed at the beginning, and reflecting on the long journey that they've taken together. There are still 380 moons to find after this, but this is enough to be considered done. I still went and got all 880, but that's my own decision and I won't hold it against the game. I mostly did it for research anyway, to determine whether there are even enough worthwhile moons to get to 500. Turns out it's nowhere close, and you're constantly going to dip into these filler Korok seed moons. That's the other counter argument I see brought out a lot. If you don't like the filler moons, just don't do them.
Yeah, you do have to do the filler moons, I guess, if you want to get up to 500 to unlock Darker Side of the Moon. Makes sense.
There are a few problems with this argument, even if it may sound reasonable at first. For starters, let's make it absolutely clear that there aren't even 500 good moons in Odyssey, even if you could magically only do those ones. If you combine every moon you get from fighting bosses, doing challenge rooms, and every minigame, you would still be more than 200 short from this 500 moon goal. And that's being overly generous because not all of those moons are worth your time. Many of them are the same content used again and again and are Korok seed tier instead of actually good worthwhile moons. Secondly, there's no way to know ahead of time whether something is worth your time or something you should avoid until you go and do it. Not every door leads to a challenge room, some just lead to a chest sitting there that you open and get a filler moon. You can't tell how good a mannequin timer challenge is going to be until you throw your hat on it and find out. Most of them are bad, but...
Yeah, I think the problem I'm noticing here is that this guy really is not interested in just finding things for the sake of finding them. Like, he doesn't really seem to get any pleasure out of locating stuff. Out of, like this guy would hate an Easter egg hunt. Like, if you if you celebrated Easter with this guy as a kid, and like the Easter egg hunt would be his least favorite part of the day. You'd be like, I don't want to do this. This is boring as fuck. Just looking in places that you wouldn't think to look, the challenge of trying to locate something in a big environment has no interest for this guy. Whereas I think for me, like, it's really fun. It's a really fun aspect of this game. Is like, what am I missing? Because so often you miss stuff in this game, and it's like, what? How are there still like 10 more moons in this kingdom? I don't get it. I've looked everywhere, but then you find them, and you're like, ah, there it was. It's a real head scratcher in that way.
You can't know until you try, and once you're trying, you're already there, and you should.
He doesn't like
finish.
scavenging, I guess. Yeah,
Same
I guess
goes
so.
for speaking to NPCs for moons. Will they have tasks, or will they just give you a moon? If they do have a request, will it be interesting or not? While it would be very helpful if Nintendo put all the bad moons on a list in red for us to avoid, I think that would do more harm than good for the game's image, and they wouldn't be willing to do it. Also, think about what that argument is really saying. You could have had fun with Odyssey if you avoided 80% of its content and only did the good stuff. It's ridiculous. Lastly, there are also moons that are so easy to get that you would be wasting more time if you didn't pick them up. Remember, on your first time through, you have no idea how long the game will be or how many moons you'll need by the end. The game has made it very clear that they're important. They're the reward for everything after all, so why not grab that moon you see sitting on a pile of salt, or hanging on top of that archway, or in this hole, or hovering on this cliff, or stuck to this wall, or floating on top of this rotating platform. These are some of the strangest moons in the game. They're just sitting there, no challenge, no task, just a moon floating waiting for you to get it. Should we play the guessing game again? Pause the video and scroll down to type out your guess. I think there are X many moons in Odyssey that are sitting in the world waiting for you to pick them up. Your hint this time is that it's more than 50. All done? Here we go. 102. Almost as many stars in the entire game of Mario 64. Almost 1/8 of all of the moons in Odyssey.
It's not that many.
They're just floating there waiting for you to pick them up. But the worst ones of all are the NPC moons. These are the same category that hold the play a song for Toad moons. Those ones actually require more effort than most in this category. Do you know how in Mario 3D World, Captain Toad has his own set of unique levels with perspective-based challenges and no jump button to offer some variety in gameplay? Well, in Odyssey, Captain Toad is just an NPC you find somewhere in the level who gives you a moon for free just for speaking to him. He was never hard to find either, since the game is all about wandering around looking for stuff. You just stumble across him, here's your free moon. Other NPC moons include a questline that starts with a taxi in the Sand Kingdom. These two guys are visiting most of the other worlds in a certain order that you follow by speaking to them in each kingdom. They're usually right next to the Odyssey ship after you arrive. Talk to them, get a moon, that's it. After beating the game, Princess Peach can be found in every kingdom for a free moon. She is also never in a difficult place to find. Talk to her, get another free moon. 115 moons are acquired via this method, just talking to NPCs. Unfortunately, we have to linger on these ones for a bit because some of the worst moons in the game are in this category. For some missed potential, we have the research ghost that wants you to bring a possessed enemy for inspection. These could have shaken things up by making it difficult to reach the goal while in possessed form, but instead it's just a simple matter of finding the enemy and waddling over with no obstacles whatsoever. It's more seed and pot planting tier bullshit. Think of how this issue was already addressed and solved in earlier Mario games, and I mean early. Mario 2 and 3 on the NES. When you steal a key in Mario 2 and those floating mask things begin to chase you, or the evil sun appearing in the desert level to harass you while you try to get forward. There's none of this in Odyssey. Two of the first games in the series did this better. These NPC moons are also inexplicably tied to the main questline in Metro Kingdom when Pauline asks you to find some musicians. 4 of them. Only one of these could possibly be considered hidden, and even that's being generous since you'll be exploring the tops of the buildings anyway. This world has more of a focus on scaling vertically than any other. For some insane reason, each of these triggers the fancier version of the
this
God
is
of
what I
Moon
was talking
animation
about,
and
like
teleports you
the
inside
full
one of the buildings,
animation.
just like getting kicked out of a painting in 64. Nothing changes in the city, however, so I truly do not
pronounced
understand
Mario.
the intent here aside from
Yeah.
padding. Or Nintendo thought it
Mario.
was really important that you hear how the song they're playing changes when each new performer is found. There was also Pauline's trial and error questionnaire that you do later that's arguably even worse than this. Lastly, and by every means least, we have the Toadette achievement tracker in the Mushroom Kingdom. This is where you get a moon for getting moons.
Yeah,
She awards moons for
sucks.
beating the game, jumping so many times, throwing the hat so many times, catching rabbits, collecting coins, and I think you get the idea. These are things you are doing anyway. They are bonus moons on top of every other moon you're collecting. The issue is that Toadette gives these out one at a time. You need to speak to her.
You have to
for
do this
each
like 20
one.
times
Go
in a
through
row.
the dialogue prompt, then watch the animation, then do it again for 60 moons. Doing just this all by itself took more than 8 minutes to go through, and I had queued them all up already and had the achievements when I came in, so this was the most efficient way of doing this because I never had to leave and then go back when I earned another achievement. The solution here is to have them be granted automatically with an achievement jingle, or just not have them award moons at all, since with these out of the game, Odyssey would still have 820 moons to get. Something tells me that having that number
it's
as
not
close
necessary.
as possible to 1,000 was important though. It sure does sound like a huge chunk of content, doesn't it?
Yeah, but when it's not actual content, it doesn't matter.
Unfortunately, Toadette is not the worst example on this long list of NPC moons. There's one, just one, that's far, far worse.
This one? I love this one. You just sit down next to the guy. Like, you wouldn't even think to do that. You wouldn't think about sitting down next to a guy.
Bench
Random
friends.
guy. But he's lonely. He's lonely, and then it's like, hey, thanks for being there for me. I'll give you a moon. I like that one. How is this one the worst? This guy's...
There's a problem that infests and rots any game when there's a lot of copy and pasted content, especially in something close to a collectathon like Odyssey. In other 3D Marios, you're given a hint for what objective you're currently on. In Odyssey, you only get that for the main quest in each kingdom. The rest of the moons are blank on these lists here. They could be anything, they could be anywhere. There is a hint system,
Yeah,
but
it
that's
was clever.
clearly a last-ditch effort, a safety net. If you're actually meant to run to this parrot and get a hint for every moon, then the game is even more tedious and drawn out than I thought. So when you get a moon like Bench Friends, your heart should sink so low that your thong should get heavy. Bench Friends implies that there are other moons like Bench Friends. This moon is a reward for sitting down next to a guy and waiting for a moment. If you see another guy
No, but it
on
gives
another
you a
bench,
hint. He says, boy, I tell you, this city. So it's like, oh, this guy's having a bad day. Let's see what's up. And then you stand on the bench and look at him for a second. And then your character, within like 3 seconds, he automatically sits down. And then it enters this little dialogue box. Yeah, it gives you a hint. It's not like it's totally random. Like, oh, you have to just walk up and stare at any NPC. No. Just the ones who have a hint that tells you that there's something about him that's different.
you should do it again just in case they have moons too. Now you may think this is a nitpick. How many moons could there possibly be from sitting on benches in Odyssey? It turns out there's only this one, although that feels like cut content since there are similar benches with this guy on other levels. But this concept is actually used and stretched out with other moons. Expecting there to be 5 Bench Friends moons or even a bench family isn't unreasonable. For instance, there's a moon called Hat and Seek, which has you looking at the hats on every NPC in every kingdom to see if they have eyes. These are Cappy ghosts in disguise. If you're not using hints, this means you have to inspect every single NPC to find them. If you are using hints,
Or,
all that means is
if
you've
you
narrowed
just
it down
see
to
the
this
eyes,
specific
then
kingdom.
then
You
can
still need to look at every
see it.
NPC with a hat, which is pretty much every NPC in a world since that's the theme of the game.
You
NPCs
don't
without
have
hats
to
is an
do-
indicator that you can control them after all.
It's
with
not
your own
like you
hat being
have to
swung
do
on the
this in
head.
order to move forward. It's like if you happen to come across the guy with eyes on the back of his hat, you're going to notice it. And if you don't notice it, it's not a big deal.
There are 6
It's just a fun little thing to reward you for seeing something that was a little bit hard to see.
of these hat and seek moons in Odyssey. 6 of these hats to find in a whole sea of other hats before you're done with this kind of content. At some point, you'll find a moon in a rock. You'll kick a rock sitting in the ground, it'll glow, break open, hey, it's a moon. So now you better break open every single rock you find because there
No.
might be a moon
Only break open the ones that glow. That's the hint. If it glows, then it has a moon in it.
inside. They don't glow until you start kicking them either.
Yeah, you just pass by them. Yeah, see, that one just broke immediately. So like you don't have to kick them around for eternity until they break, like the ones that have the moons in them. You just run by them and see if they're moons or not. Like, what's wrong with that?
There are 5 moons hidden in rocks like this in the game. One in Ruin Kingdom requires you to kick it 50 times in order to break it. Or you can throw it from as high as possible off the dragon's head 3 times. Something that isn't clear at all since you have no way of knowing if this extra height is causing more damage with each throw. You have to take a throw of faith 3 times in a row. This moon is insane,
I
and
didn't even know
sadly
about that.
somehow isn't the worst one in the game. At this point, some of you might be thinking that this is also nitpicky. That's only 5 moons. Please understand that there are far, far, far more than 5 rocks in Odyssey. These are only the rocks that end up having moons in them.
Yeah, and how much of an imposition is it for you to just run by the rock real quick and see if it has a moon in it? It's not an imposition at all. Just do it and then you're over with it. I just think that, yeah, I mean, this guy really has a problem with scavenger hunts. It just seems like this is very boring to him. Whereas I think he's more interested in Mario as a sort of platforming challenge, where the challenge is, running and jumping and avoiding enemies or hitting enemies. And I can see that. I can see why this might not be his ideal version of a Mario game. But I like it.
Something you can't tell until you try kicking them. Since it's the same task, no matter if there's a moon or not, you will be doing this same thing dozens of times. Even then though, you might still think it's a small amount of moons. The issue is made much larger when these are put alongside other objectives that are in the same tier as this. For instance, we caught that rabbit earlier in the Mushroom Kingdom. There are 12 moons in Odyssey that are gotten like that. 12 rabbits that are copy and pasted onto levels that reward a moon. However, there are more than 12 rabbits, because some are decoys.
Yeah, and the rabbits are actually pretty difficult to get. They're kind of hard. They're not that easy. It's not like you just run up to the rabbit and throw your hat at it or whatever. You gotta get it at exactly the right time, because it is challenging. And so that, if the game were nothing but rabbits, then that would get pretty boring. But since there's only maybe 1 to 3 of them in each kingdom, it's not that bad. It's just oh, this again.
Decoys that only give you coins. This copy and paste is also so lazily done. There's no unique area that makes chasing them interesting. There's no set obstacle that spawns once the chase begins to make it challenging.
The moon with its gravity makes it interesting.
There are just rabbits plopped down to add moons to a level. Even worse are the moons you get from hitting birds. These are glowing as they fly around levels. You see them, you hit them, you get a moon. There are 11.
But they're hard to hit. Again, it's a real challenge to hit these fucking birds because they're so high up in the air that you either have to glide down to get them or you have to jump up really high at exactly the right moment. You have to wait for the exact, it's not easy. And so that's a challenge. That's something that can occupy some of your time. And yeah, it gets repeated over and over, but at least it's interesting.
11 of these. In case you're not keeping count, and why would you be, if you add up all the filler moons we've seen so far, leading the dogs around, talking to NPCs, planting seeds, sitting out in the open, kicking rocks, catching rabbits and birds, we're at 268 moons. And we haven't even gotten to ground pound moons or the bad possession puzzles and filler challenge rooms yet. The last type I want to point out for this problem of noticing something and then having to try it every time you see it again are the unlit torches. Once the game shows you that you can get moons from these, then you're drawn toward wasting your time doing it for every unlit torch that you see. Just in the same way that breaking open these nuts.
How many unlit torches are there in the game? There's not that many. There's not very many unlit torches that you can light in the game, because you hardly ever have firepower. You have this guy, and then you have those balls, those little balls of fire in the Luncheon Kingdom. I think that's about it.
All over the Wooded Kingdom also gives you moons. Your reaction to this might be, why are you complaining about this? How many unlit torches could there possibly be to light in Odyssey? 15. There are 15 of them. If you want to get...
That's nothing. That's nothing. 15 in all of the whole game. Like, yeah, this guy really doesn't like being expected to do anything twice. Everything must be a totally unique challenge. When I first got it, the game reminded me of a collectathon game like Banjo-Kazooie, but more refined and expansive. Yep, that's it.
Get every moon, you have to light 15 torches. If anyone enjoyed doing this more than once, please let me know, and let me know how. Did you learn that
If it was fun the first time, then it's fun the second time. That's how. I mean, we're hitting upon a problem. It's like this. There's some people. See, I don't like reading a novel more than once, but there's some people who don't even like watching a movie more than once. You know, this guy doesn't like doing a task in a game more than once, I think. But, you know, I'll replay Mario 64 a bunch of times, and that's, you know, I've played through the whole game before. I've done it all before, but I'm doing it again because it was fun the first time, so I'll do it another time, you know?
Smashing open crates can give you moons? Better smash open every crate. Did you learn that killing all the enemies in a room can give a moon? Better clear every room just in case. Did you learn that destroying chunks of rock with possessed enemies can give you moons? Better destroy every chunk of rock. Did you learn that ground pounding glowing parts of the floor can give moons?
Well,
better do that for all of them.
It
as
says
well.
better
Destroying chunks of rock with possessed enemies can give you moons. Better destroy every chunk of rock.
But that little example he showed there, that was a glowing rock. So in that case, you know which ones have moons and which ones don't. Because it shows you the hints. Now, not every single one is like that. Most of these examples were not like that.
Learn that destroying chunks of rock with possessed enemies can give you moons. Better destroy every chunk of rock. Did you learn that ground pounding glowing parts...
Usually the conspicuous ones have the moons, usually. Not all the time.
The floor can give moons? Better do that for all of them as well. There are 47 moons in Odyssey from ground pounding spots on the ground. 47. But it's worse than that because not every spot that responds to a ground pound has a moon. It's the same problem as the rocks and everything else that we've seen. Even the glowing ones don't always have moons. Some have coins. Even then, some spots don't even glow at all. You either have to feel for a rumble in your controller, which means running over the whole map and paying attention to the vibration like a game of hot and cold, or just guessing.
No, not necessarily. I mean, it's at the tops of hills where you're naturally going to want to go. And once you realize that you can get moons from the tops of hills, ground pounding, then you think, oh, okay, I'm going to see about this hill. Is there one on the top of this hill? So the game does lead you in the right directions.
Sometimes there's no rumble and no visual.
It was a visual, though. I mean, that spot was, again, conspicuous. Like this spot here, when I play this game, I'm like, that looks interesting. I wonder if there's something in there. It's a random hole that's just very conspicuously put inside this. It had an enemy on top. Is there more to it than meets the eye? The game trains you to kind of think about stuff like that. Now, this one seems a little bit, like, unfair.
Pure guesswork.
That was like, huh? But wait a
Same.
minute.
Sometimes there's no rumble and no visual. Pure guesswork.
How is this one no visual? It's very conspicuous. This machine part lying there, perfectly round shape. It's just enticing you to ground pound it.
47 moons. Throwing your hat is the same way. Some of these are flower patterns, some spawn moons, some don't. Some of these are glowing tops of objects that your
Okay, so these are different things. He's lumping them all into the category of throwing your hat, but throwing your hat does different things in this game.
hat spins on and spawns a moon. Sometimes they're not glowing. Sometimes they don't spawn moons. Better throw your hat on everything. 21 moons from doing this stuff.
Yeah, if they're not glowing. See, some of these are a little bit unfair. But again, you don't have to do every single one. Only if you're really a completionist about it do you have to do every single one. You have to worry about stuff like this. But sometimes it's just a nice little surprise.
We're not even halfway done with the tedium of these moons. We've barely scratched the surface on the recycle.
So we're not even halfway done, and he's already described a lot of different types of moons in this game, which is kind of, it's kind of getting to the point, which is that this game isn't as repetitive as he says it is. Because when you first start out this video, you think, oh, wow, it's just this over and over. But it's not, because he keeps adding more things onto it. So there's the ground pound moons, then there's throwing your hat at flowers, then there's throwing your hat at these things. And, the more variables you add into it, the less repetitive it gets. And we're not even halfway done. I mean, you see kind of where my head is at. It's a big game. It has over 800 of these things. So yeah, a lot of them are going to be kind of repeating the same ideas. When you have 800 of them, of course it's going to be that way. Of course it's going to be repeating a lot of the same ideas. That's why there's so many.
Content either. That puzzle we saw earlier with stacking Goombas so you can flirt with the Lady Goomba, there are 12 versions of that same thing in the game.
Yeah, okay.
It got to the point that whenever...
Yeah, I am questioning his need to go through every single type of moon in this game. I'm wondering if there's anything else to this video that's worth seeing. This part is the most replayed section, so I'm curious about what he's saying here.
Odyssey doesn't have any one-up mushrooms, which is funny considering the big song One Up Girl was pushed so hard leading up to the game's release, and is played a bunch in the game itself too. Green mushrooms have been replaced with more moons in Mario Odyssey, or what would have been blue coins in Sunshine. Do you remember those and how much most people hated them? How they were everywhere, literally graffiti spoiling parts of levels that you needed to clean up? Sometimes they pooped out blue coins immediately.
Yeah, they were annoying, and a big reason why they were annoying is because you had to do them. It wasn't optional. They were like the red coins from Mario 64. You kind of had to do them. Because there was a sequence to each world you warped into, and you couldn't really go out of sequence.
Other times they were timing challenges. Sometimes NPCs gave them to you, or they were just hanging in the open to pick up. They even interrupted gameplay by asking you to save, just like filler moons in Odyssey. Galaxy 2 has challenge rooms. It's also brimming with secret places you can reach for extra star bits or 1-ups. In Odyssey, these would be moons. Going through Galaxy again, I did a mental count in my head of every time a challenge would have resulted in a moon if it had taken the Odyssey approach. And there would have been way more in that game than in Odyssey. Those musical note challenges for 1-ups, in Odyssey, those are moons, mainline content. They're a fun thing to do on the side, but when they make you pause and do a jingle, and apparently also took up so much development time that there's barely any real content in the game after this, it makes me hate them. Should we play our guessing game again for musical note moons? Let's drop it actually, 26. There are 26 collect musical notes.
So that was the most replayed section, I guess, just talking about the blue coins from Mario Sunshine. Now he's just droning on and on. Yeah, like there really was no point in going through literally every moon. It's just not worth it. Hey dude, you like Typo Negative? Just wondering. No, I've never listened to Typo Negative. He's more tedious than the supposed tedium he's critiquing. Yeah. Typo Negative is great. I think a typo deep esoteric dive would be awesome. Well, that is a topic for another person. Let's see.
Been better by being introduced earlier in the game in some TARDIS style bigger on the inside room in the Odyssey, for example.
I've never known how to do these. Do you just ground pound?
So you could always be on the lookout for them as you're going through levels instead of backtracking, but this is still a good chunk of moons, I think.
I still don't know how to do those hint moons. Those visual hint moons, I can't do those. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
The other mini games are much more mixed. Let's address another big group right off the bat, the Koopa races. Remember Koopa the Quick from Mario 64? Well, his hobby lives on in spirit with these races. There are 2 of these in every kingdom, a normal...
Alright, we already talked about this. Is there anything else that he has
hammers
to add?
at blocks of cheese. Who is this for? Why does this shrine even exist? Why are 2 moons devoted to throwing hammers at cheese? Compare that...
I like how we called it a shrine. Okay, see, I was really hoping that this video would give me more context about why he liked Mario 64 but didn't like this game. And it seems like he's not really doing that. I can gather from some of his criticisms because they didn't really exist in that way in 64, but I do think that yeah, I could have used a little bit more material on that. All in all, I do think he has some good criticisms of Mario Odyssey in this, for sure. But yeah, it's a very bloated, tedious video to get through. Probably didn't need to be 2 hours. Okay, so next I want to look at that Glintstone. What is it, Gret Glintstone? The Lost Art of Video Game Critique. Oh no, that was the one I was going to watch later. Instead, I want to look at the other guy, Nettle. Nettles. There we go. 42 minutes for part 1. Let's see what this is about. Why'd this video get political all of a sudden? I apologize. Sup?
I'm bored. And you know what I do when I'm bored?
Revisit
I
old
spend
topics.
hours talking and laughing at petty internet drama from 6 years ago that nobody cares about anymore. So let's
Wow,
talk
this guy
about
has
Channel Awesome.
165 subscribers and 1,000 views on this video. So I'm getting in early. This is like music from Fantastic Mr. Fox.
Channel Awesome. Alright, to say this website defined a generation is a bit of an understatement. It was the brainchild of Doug and Rob Walker, two brothers from Chicago who had this dream of becoming internet comedians.
He has a good
Originally known
microphone.
as ThatGuyWithTheGlasses.com, it would showcase a bunch of satirical reviews of comic books and video games and movies and TV shows and all sorts of pop culture things. Now, Doug Walker is most famous for his online character of the Nostalgia Critic, who is a loud and antagonistic, foul-mouthed movie critic that got irrationally and absurdly angry at bad
credit
films and media
card!
so old that they didn't warrant that level of anger.
Bat credit card? No!
He played it.
No!
I knew it.
Not compute! I'll kill you! I'll kill all of you! All of you will die! Stupid! 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 You son of a...
This was a character that he inspired off of Looney Tunes cartoons and James Rolfe's angry video game nerd character. This character was a huge online hit and helped propel the angry internet reviewer trend from the late 2000s all the way to the early 2010s. With the Nostalgia Critic's popularity, the site got so big that everybody wanted a piece of the pie. That Guy with the Glasses would then rebrand into Channel Awesome, and it would continue to grow and expand as numerous contributors were brought on. Now, this site is actually famous for launching the careers of internet personalities such as Angry Joe, Lindsay Ellis, Linkara, and more. At one point, the site had damn near 50 plus contributors attached to its name.
Todd
But
in the
today,
shadows.
the site is gone. It's a memory. Which isn't to say that the company is gone. No, the company still exists. Doug Walker is still doing the Nostalgia Critic videos and enjoys a relatively consistent upload schedule and still has an audience. But the other contributors? Well,
I like that malt whiskey
over the years,
t-shirt.
Channel Awesome would become infamous for accusations of poor working conditions, sexism, abuse, and even people going as far as to claim the company committed fraud by stealing from its fans via Kickstarter campaign and hid and protected a sexual predator. Yeah.
Yeah, what's
After
his
Channel
name?
Awesome released a
Mike
response
Ellis.
saying, "We're sorry you feel that way," basically not apologizing for any of these allegations, the site was hit by a mass exodus of talent, leaving all but a few producers still attached to the brand. Finally, fed up with all the quote-unquote mistreatment, they would band together and release Not So Awesome on April 2nd of 2018. This is a document that was made up of stories from 40-plus contributors airing out personal and professional grievances with the company, with most of the blame being placed upon Mike Michaud, the company's owner. Out of the ashes of Channel Awesome's former
Michaud.
contributors came hashtag Change the Channel, which I guess was supposed to turn into this hashtag MeToo-esque movement exposing Channel Awesome for being this abusive corporation that exploited
did work.
hard-working innocent people. But that's
It
kind of
basically
just what they
killed the
want you to
website.
think. See, on the surface, it appears to be legitimate given the sheer size of it, but if you actually take the time to read through this thing and all of the grievances, it's just a bunch of nothing. There's nothing here, man. It's whining. It's a manipulative 70-page whine fest, crying about small and petty slights and non-issues that have been repeated ad nauseum to make it look like a bigger deal than it actually was. It's designed to evoke as much sympathy from the reader as possible and
See, this
demonize
is the
Channel
thing.
Awesome every chance it
This is the same thing with the Alex Day mega thread on Tumblr. Or Master Post, I think is what it was called. Back when Alex Day was getting accused of sexual misconduct, I guess is the proper term. Like, one person came out with a sort of like, kind of damning allegation, sort of. And then a bunch of people flooded it with just a bunch of crap, but then it looks like there's like 13 women saying that he raped them, you know? That's when you don't actually read the allegations, that's what it looks like. So that's what it reminds me of when people kind of create this dog pile effect, and then everyone comes with their story, no matter how worthless it is to the actual discussion. But then when you put it all together, it looks like a big deal. Just because there's so much of it.
Despite a lot of the issues either not being that bad, making no sense, or being the fault of the person who aired the grievance in the first place. A good chunk of them have no evidence to back up their claim, and one of the bigger accusations actually implicates someone in the document itself, thus turning most of these people into complete hypocrites. People eventually lost interest in this drama, and it was mostly forgotten about. And now it's just an ugly blemish on the butt of internet history. I think a lot of the producers were actually banking on folks not actually reading this thing and just relied on the sheer size of it to try to manipulate people.
Even if you haven't seen it, if people are accusing him, you've got to take that seriously, because these are serious allegations. 40 plus people saying all this stuff, they're not all lying.
Yeah, well, given there's a lot of people who hate Doug Walker for petty reasons, like not thinking he's funny or thinking he's a bad
This video is
reviewer,
entertaining
they
so
probably
far. I'm
were more
enjoying
content
it.
with preying on people's mob mentality rather than actually tell the truth. Yeah, these people lie a lot too. So, I think we're going to go through every single one of these complaints and read through them to see how it all holds up. Now, one thing you should understand before you read is that nobody here is an innocent victim. Okay, nobody. These are not innocent victims. You have so many people who see themselves as the good guys and refuse to take any responsibility for their own mistakes because it's so much easier to dogpile someone and displace blame rather than admit you were the one who was wrong. This whole thing was written mostly by naive young people who joined the site fresh out of high school or were just starting college, who saw Doug Walker's videos and thought,
hey, it's Tony
all you gotta do
Goldmark.
to
I
make
really
money
like
is
that
sit in
guy,
front
by
of
the
a
way.
camera and rant about.
If you've never seen Some Jerk with the Camera, this guy's videos are actually hilarious. I know most of the Channel Awesome people kind of sucked. This guy's videos were legitimately some of the funniest YouTube videos I've ever seen. Like he had such a bizarre, whacked out sense of humor. And he was really funny. And they're well produced too. Like, he did them all at Disneyland. And there would be like jokes in the background where he would be talking about a subject and then he happened to be in front of something in Disneyland that kind of related to that subject. It was that like all the way through. Yeah, definitely check out Some Jerk with the Camera if you haven't.
Doug Walker's videos and thought, ooh, all you gotta do to make money is sit in front of a camera and rant about things that you don't like? I can do that. Sure beats a stupid 9 to 5. And they just jumped in with no idea how businesses or the real world works, and now they have massive egg on their faces that they're still trying to wash off to this day. For example, one of the many complaints is that they were not employed by Channel Awesome. Channel Awesome simply embedded videos onto their site. Outside of the anniversary movies, no contracts were involved. The only people who were paid were the people involved with their inner circle in the Chicago crew. So right off the bat, we got a red flag here, because a lot of these people stayed on this site for years at a time, despite knowing this fact. None of them were contractually obligated to be there. They literally could have left the site anytime they wanted, but they decided to stay. See, Channel Awesome was not an office that people reported into work every day. It was a website that had many producers stretched out all over the US. There were even some people from Canada, from France, the UK, I mean, all of which communicated online and worked from home and set their own schedules. The only time these people were ever together.
It was a way to give people a place to grow an audience when they couldn't do it on YouTube, when YouTube's copyright system was too restrictive, or even after that. You know, some people like Angry Joe and Todd in the Shadows maintained... No, not Todd in the Shadows. He didn't. Angry Joe maintained a strong YouTube presence, and a few others during that whole time, which helped them in the long run. But it was a good way for people, even like Angry Joe, if they had a YouTube presence, they could still use the kind of... They could piggyback off of the Nostalgia Critic, basically, because the Nostalgia Critic was really popular, And the Nostalgia Critic was saying, hey, these are my team. We are collectively a thing called Channel Awesome. And so, like, it's like a big league of creators who he brought together and was like, okay, this guy has something to offer. Let's bring him on board. And then he's part of the crew. And then his name appears on the list. And when you go to the website was a big deal. I remember this. You would go to the list and see all the creators, and you'd be like, oh, that's a new one. I haven't seen that one before. Let me watch him. Let's see what he's doing. So it instantly brought a bunch of eyeballs onto your work. And if you could do it, if you could entertain people, then people would keep coming back. And then your videos would get on the front page if they did well. So it was a little ecosystem that they created as a way to promote people and get people seen, and also get ads on their work through Blip TV. When Blip, nobody was just straight up going to Blip and looking for stuff. You had to go to other websites that embedded videos from Blip in order to actually get any attraction through Blip. And that was what that guy with the glasses was good for.
Was when they were filming anniversary crossovers in movies or going to conventions. So already, we have a case for people not taking responsibility right there. I mean, you hated being a part of this site, yet you stayed on for years despite it being an increasingly negative experience for you, and you didn't leave when you had the chance. That's kind of on you, isn't it? But, anyway, let's go ahead and begin and get into this. Now, it's not to say that I think everybody in this document is full of crap, because there are people who I can believe did have legitimate grievances. The first here is Beth Elderkin, who seems genuine in her story. She's very mature in her writing. Elderkin? She doesn't demonize Channel Awesome. She doesn't bring up every single petty slight against them.
I don't even know her.
Liking a TV show or something. Because believe me, these complaints get really petty after a while. I mean, she even says that she remained friends with Doug and upper management, so that clearly indicates to me that she's a rational thinking adult that doesn't take every setback personally. Basically, she says that she worked with Channel Awesome on a comic show from their Kickstarter campaign, and they said that they would pay her an hourly rate, but by hourly, they meant how long she was on the show, and not how long she spent filming the show. So, you know what she did? She did the smart thing. She found another job at IO9 and she left. Good for her knowing her worth. I swear, so many problems in this document would be solved if people just did that, just got real jobs. Then there's Benjamin Daniel, aka Benzai. Now, he's a French YouTuber and a game tester who got his start on Channel Awesome way back in 2008. One reason I like this guy is because he keeps his grievance short, sweet, and to the point, and doesn't waste my time going into 20-page monologues trying to paint Channel Awesome as these evil monsters. He just says that management was bad and that he was upset because his girlfriend's artwork was being sold by Channel Awesome and she didn't get a share. That sucks, bro. I'm sorry you had to deal with that. However, did your girlfriend sign anything entitling her to a share? If not, sorry dude, next time get it in writing. However, he does learn a very valuable lesson.
If you're good at something, never do it for free.
Well said. And then the third is Elizabeth Iron Liz Scochill.
I remember hearing
about
this
her
name.
time as a production assistant for the shooting of Suburban Nights, the company's second anniversary crossover movie. Now, I don't want to be too hard on her. I mean, she is one of the few people with integrity in this document. She fully acknowledges that she chose to partake in this of her own accord and took accountability for her own actions. But basically, she was a producer on the website briefly when she was dating Louis Lovehog, better known by his internet name Linkara, and she was also a production assistant for Suburban Nights, the company's second anniversary crossover movie. Now, the shoot was not a pleasant experience for her at all. She was very cold and hungry and was not thanked or reimbursed for her work. She drove their props and actors around to the shooting locations and had to pay for gas on her own dime. But the biggest issue was her accidentally getting injured on the set when one of the actors stepped on and bruised her knee, and Rob Walker made her sign a liability waiver before getting her ice to put on her injury. Yikes. Well, number one, terribly sorry that had to happen to you. Getting a busted knee is no joke. That is legitimately incompetent and stupid on the company's part.
Imagine that. We will give you ice to put on your knee, but first you have to sign this document that says we're not liable. Wonderful.
And I can't defend that at all. But number two, it's also very stupid on your part. Why would you sign that? You may have been able to take some kind of action against them if you didn't. Oh well.
But
She
would
also
you
feels
want
that there was a
to?
lot of waste.
Would you want to take action against them, or would you rather just not have to sign anything and not take action against them? The fact that they made you sign it implies that they think you're going to take action against them, which kind of feels like a dick move. I mean, it's a smart move in some senses. But I feel like, I don't know, it would be too much hassle to even want to take action against them. And also, given that it was such an informal project, I mean, this was not like a formal movie that they were making. This is just like a group of people coming together. Now, she is considered a production assistant, so I think that means that she was like hired crew. So maybe it's different in her case.
Wasted opportunity if they had really tried to grow the brand into a convention or live.
Yeah,
streaming or
honestly,
grow
like if they presented me with that document, like after I'd already injured myself, I would have been like, no, dude, I'm not signing this shit. I'm not gonna sign some liability document right after I got injured. That's so dumb. You know, you can do what you want at that point, but like, yeah, don't. I'm not gonna sign something right after I get injured that says you're not liable for the damages. It's
outside of
ridiculous.
media review and into more formal cinema. She thinks they could have seen far more financial success, which is a fair critique, one of the very few in this whole mess. She also says they used to do live streams for charity and even tried to get involved with SOPA, but that was few and far between when you stack it up against the shady business practices and how they treated people, and she thinks the wasted opportunity is just as bad as the abuse and labor violations. No, it is not. They are not in the same league. That is an over-exaggeration. She also wonders how it hasn't been the target of a class action lawsuit. Lawsuit? For what? You volunteered your own time and you never signed any contracts, so nothing was officially documented. And the only contract that you did sign stated that they weren't at fault for what happened to you. So what are you going to sue them for? Yeah, but at the end of the day, she fully acknowledges that it's also partially her own fault and could have left any time, but she chose not to. She says she harbors no ill will against anyone at the site. She wants everybody to be happy in their lives and in their work. She just didn't agree with the way the site was run, and it didn't have anything to offer her. And that's it. Yeah, it's completely fair. I don't see any problems with that. And you know, believe it or not, she even admitted to regretting contributing to this document and said that it shouldn't be trusted given the questionable actions its authors demonstrated since it first dropped. So, yeah, someone who contributed to this document is telling us not to believe everything in it. Oh, Lord, we are in for a treat. But that's it. Those are all the people I can believe. The rest are either A, crybabies who complain about nothing, B, idiots who bring their problems onto themselves, C, bitter failures.
I want to hear Linkara. I want to hear Lindsay Ellis. I think those are the main ones I want to hear from. And I think they both contributed to this document.
Upset that they're not as popular as the Nostalgia Critic, or D, all of the above. Let's begin with the unnecessary fluff.
Linkara's whining will be especially epic. Yeah. I don't know how to do a Linkara impression. I've never tried it before. But I can imagine what you'll say.
Now we'll get into the other people in this document who have so little merit to add that I'm convinced they were given access to it by the curators to complain about anything just to make the document bigger, regardless of how minuscule the issue actually was. First, there's Jacob Chapin, Jesu Otaku. Majab is going to have me fired for criticizing
Similar
the
kind of
site,
thing
and
with
told
the
them that, no, I
Marilyn
would quit on
Manson
my own terms and my own
allegations
time, or else I
too,
would go public.
where Jacob is Jesu Otaku now trans? Anyway, yeah, a similar thing with the the Marilyn Manson allegations, where they like seek out anybody who could possibly have a grievance against Marilyn Manson and get him to say something. But they don't realize that that's a bad move, because it makes, when the person doesn't have something good to say, something actually substantial, then it just looks like you're looking for anybody who ever had any problem with Marilyn Manson, which is what you're doing. So it doesn't make your case look good. It looks frivolous when you do that. Like, if you bloat your case with a bunch of unnecessary junk, it makes your case look worse. Instead of focusing on maybe the few things that actually matter.
With the chat logs I had of their abuse, they were 100% going to fire me for basically saying the site had issues in public at all, but they crumpled like wet cardboard when I told them it wasn't going to happen without me publicly destroying their reputations as much as I could. Okay, well, we'll ignore the fact that this guy pretty much just said the same thing twice in a row, just with different wording, but can we see the chat logs of the abuse you're talking about? No? Nothing? Then I'm afraid you're just talking out of your rear end and you've effectively contributed nothing to this document. I mean, nobody knows who you are, but you think you have the ability to end someone's career? But hey, at least it was short, so I commend you for that. Leon Thomas, Renegade Cut. Basically, the dude stayed with Channel Awesome for 5 years and is upset the exposure he got didn't benefit him the way he wanted it to.
That guy, yeah, he joined in 2011. I've heard of Renegade Cut. I remember for some reason not liking Renegade Cut, but I don't know who he is. I don't know who this guy is. Let me look him up. I've got to figure out who Renegade Cut is, because I remember the name and I remember not liking it, whoever he was. But I don't know who he is. He did one about The Incredibles, Ayn Rand, and objectivism. He did one about Rick and Morty. The problem with Rick and Morty. I don't know if I saw that one. I might have. Saturday neoliberalism, that sounds familiar. A video about Saturday Night Live. Renegade Cut posts politics videos. He's an anarchist or something. Media critique with a political philosophical lens. Yeah, I'm gathering that. But I'm trying to remember what video it was I didn't like from him. I think I've seen a few of these a long time ago, but there was like one that particularly I didn't like. This could be a guy to review on my channel on these streams. He has some fascism videos, which might be interesting to look at. I'm going to go to, like, oldest first and see if I can find anything from there. Okay, this stuff goes back 10 years ago. I feel like there's one particular video that I didn't like. Gotta find it. It's taking a long time. I have to find it though. I know this is boring to watch me just trying to find this, but I cannot rest until I find this. It was a really long time ago that I saw whatever video this was. It might have been like 2016. Wow, he did a lot of videos 8 years ago. I'm still on 8 years ago. I'm still going though. I'm not going to stop. All right, now I'm on 7 years ago. A lot of movie reviews. Hmm. Uh, 2016 maybe it was something to do with the Ghostbusters. Yeah, we're past that, and he didn't make a Ghostbusters video as far as I saw. I want you all to know that I like nanners. Okay. Alright, continuing on trying to find this video. 6 years ago. There's the Incredibles one. This could just be a waste of time. I might get to the end of it and not find what it was. We have Reagan's Ghostbusters. Hmm, 5 years ago. Getting a little bit farther away from what I thought was the time period I saw it. I do know I saw the Saturday Night Live video. I don't know if that was it. I don't think I would have hated that video that much. The Rick and Morty one might be it. But again, I don't really know what I would have hated about that video. Yeah. Oh, he did do one about Ghostbusters 2016, but he did it only 4 years ago. He said it was good. That's pretty stupid. But I don't think I saw that video. Yeah, so now we're getting beyond. Yeah, it's definitely like 3 years ago I was not watching Renegade Cut. So I think we've gotten beyond my zone. So it was one of those, probably. But I don't know which one. Okay, well that was a waste of time, but let's get back to the video. Maybe something to do with the Joker? I didn't see that on the list. Oh, hello. Hello there. Alright. That's gonna drive me crazy. I'm gonna have to watch some of those videos and see if I can find which one it was.
Oh well. He's also mad at Doug for allegedly taking a clip from one of his videos and putting them in his own without asking, which is a bit hypocritical given the fact that you guys review movies, comics,
Yeah,
cartoons,
that's
and
lame.
a bunch of
That's
stuff that's
stupid.
not yours without asking the owner all the time. I guess he doesn't understand fair use
Wait
as
a
well as he
minute.
thinks he does, because it clearly states that
He says, he used video footage from my channel without asking me. I believe in some level of fair use, but this is a remarkably unusual thing for management to do to a subordinate. Why? Huh? That's stupid.
you can use copyrighted material for purposes like criticism, news reporting, teaching, and research without the need for permission. So unless you want to take Doug to court, I'd chalk this up to a mild annoyance at best. He also talks about broken promises, which he doesn't elaborate on. Says Mike Michaud agreed to meet them on Skype and that he claimed he would do what he could to meet their needs, but doesn't explain what those needs were. He then says Michaud stopped talking to him completely, and he left the official Channel Awesome Skype chat, which means nothing because he already left the company at that point anyway, so yeah. See Farah Wiki. I have no idea who this is. He just laments that Channel Awesome treated him like a fan, which, yeah, that's kind of all you were, bro. You weren't even a real content creator. You just edited their wiki, and not a very good job by
Yeah.
the way you describe it. He says sometimes they said they liked us, and then it was found out that the higher-ups did not like the wiki at all. It was strange because they'd say on streams that they liked them when in actuality they did not. I don't know, it just sounds like you weren't very good at what you were brought in to do. There's a big difference between someone liking you as a person but not liking your work. He also states that several people were being talked about behind their backs while maintaining a facade, but what does this even mean? Like, this
A
is worded
mic
so vaguely that you
facade,
don't even know what you're referring to.
if you
Who was
will.
being talked about? What were they saying? What facade were they trying to maintain? Then he talks
should do a stream where it's just us on the Discord voice chat reading the original Revenge of the Sith script. Shit was wild. Really? What's wild about it?
It's about the website's blogs not being updated, and that's pretty much it, just minor inconveniences. Leslie Rice. She was told, presumably by management, to send the material she'd already uploaded. Her scheduled uploads were moved from the dates they were entered. Annoying, but not unheard of. The site was badly managed, and they had dozens upon dozens of contributors, so it's likely she was pushed aside for someone else. She was locked out of Channel Awesome's files and was told she'd receive a new password, but was then just told to send her work on Skype. And finally, she was told she'd be removed from the site for failure to post 2 videos.
Wait, you can send work on Skype? Oh, is it like just text-based work? Or no, it says she's posting videos. I don't know who this person is. You can send a video on Skype?
A month once. She missed a deadline, heard nothing for half a year, posted her content somewhere else, and then they just took her off the site. Possibly because she didn't upload anything. So, yeah, no real complaints here, just filler, nothing horrible, nothing damning. Finally...
Yeah, nothing that horrible, it's just annoying. Just like a badly managed interaction with these guys.
We have the second of 2 anonymous people. I'll talk about the first later. Oh, will we ever talk about the first? But this person also doesn't have much to add. They start off by saying that they were brought in to make fan art and was overworked by the sheer amount of commissions they accepted, which is their own fault. They made their own show, and they were brought in by Holly Brown, the company's human resources coordinator at the time. We'll get to her. They talk about blistered thumbs for content.
Oh, is she the one who had the thing with G Wario?
Blistered Thumbs was a subdivision of the Channel Awesome website solely dedicated to video game reviews and journalism and was shut down due to poor management. And she talks about how that fell apart and there was too much content on the site. Blip TV,
I never really understood the point of having a separate thing called Blistered Thumbs. Maybe it was to make it like less Doug focused and more of a thing that was like because he said for journalism as well. So for like you could go to a con and be like, yeah, I'm with Blistered Thumbs reporting on this. I guess I see the point there.
Medium platform that Channel Awesome used for their web series to monetize their productions went the way of the dodo, and they decided to leave after that. They also say that their own work wasn't very good, so
I'll be General Grievous.
Really, the only grievance this person seems to have is that they felt the prizes for the fan art competitions were under.
I mean, I've seen, I think it's Razzle who does readings of the Harry Potter movie scripts. Those are pretty funny.
Whelming. Well, what were you expecting? An all-expenses paid trip to Europe? Once again, like many others, this person seems to only have contributed to the document because everybody else was doing it. They were brought in, they thought it wasn't worth it, they left. That's it. There's nothing of substance here, it's just them being offended for other people. They even say, I'm glad I moved on from all this. Moved on from what? Nothing happened to you. The company's literally done you no wrong. You said it yourself, you were long gone before the drama even happened. All these accounts are useless and don't need to be here, it's just padding. You could literally take all these people's stories out of the document and nothing would change.
It's your fault.
Now we're going to talk about a bunch of people who were booted off the site for their own actions or inaction and refused to take any responsibility, or just left because they weren't popular enough. You'll also hear these people talk about some guy named Greg, who is Microsoft's
Okay, I'm
brother
looking
who
up
handled
the
scheduling and
Revenge of the
producer videos on
Sith
the website.
script just to see like
First we
what
have
people are saying
Topher
about it.
Ames, Fool Fantastic. He joined the site back in 2009 and says a few issues began to pop up in his personal life. On the simplest level, it was his senior year of high school. Stress was kicking in as he was focused on school. But what really took his focus away from the site was that he was finally accepting that he was gay, which, living in a town of only 5,000 people in rural Illinois, is a scary experience. Now, I don't want to make accusations of homophobia and the like toward Channel Awesome, but at the same time, the idea of going to someone like Michaud and saying, hey, I'm having issues with my sexual identity and need some time away from the site to figure things out, certainly didn't sound inviting. However, as I've said, Holly was presented to me like a key member of the team, and she had been open about her own association with the LGBTQ community, so naturally, I discussed coming out with her and made it clear my time would be occupied for a couple of months. Of course, things didn't go as smoothly as I planned. Pretty soon I was faced with the threat of not being allowed to go off to college due to coming out. so what was already a stressful period turned into a threat against my future. As you can probably imagine, creating content for that guy with the glasses was not a main focus at that point. Yet throughout that time period, I remained determined to better my content. I consistently worked on improving my style, but avoided publishing any videos until it was up to the standards of other producers. I became focused on how to make a positively focused series entertaining. I even put quite a bit of money down on a camera. Well, maybe you should have just uploaded what you could when you could. I mean, it probably wouldn't have been god-tier quality content, but at least it would have been content. It might have shown them you were serious about making videos for Channel Awesome at the very least. I mean, how are they supposed to know that you're working on improving your style and spending all this money on a camera and trying to improve your standards if you're not communicating with them? Finally ready to return to that guy with the glasses, I contacted Barga with my improved series ready. However,
Bargo.
while getting
I remember him. He was Mati. It's because I'm Indian. They're a bunch of racists. Wait a minute, Mati. I thought you were supposed to be South American. So he contacted Bargo, and his videos are no longer in the drop-down menu.
I happened to look at the website and noticed my videos were no longer in the drop-down menu. Instead of going straight to my new video, I instead brought this up. He claimed that because I hadn't produced anything in several months and hadn't contacted anyone about why, they decided to remove me. I had addressed a few issues. 1. I had contacted someone from the site, Holly. 2. We were all connected on Skype. If they were wondering where I went, they had my contact information immediately available. 3. Additionally, I explained my reason for needing to take time away. So, what, you just told one person and figured that would be enough? Like you weren't even able to stay in contact with them and make sure that you were still on good terms with the site? So you were too scared to talk to the owner of the company about this issue, so you just told one person, then you never contacted them again, and then you left the site for an undetermined amount of time, and then you just expected to be welcomed back with open arms like nothing happened. Are you seriously that naive? They entirely ignored the first point, apparently talking to...
Yeah, I mean, this is just a case of this guy being, like, really sensitive, I think, and probably needing to do more to make sure that he had good standing with these people. Theoretically, the HR person should be able to, like, handle this, but if he isn't keeping in touch with her, it could easily slip past her notice that, you know, someone else noticed that he wasn't contributing to the site and removed him. So, yeah, it's just one of these things where, like, there probably should have been more clear communication with Holly on both ends, but Holly clearly had other shit to worry about, so I don't blame her for forgetting about this guy. I don't even know who this guy is.
Holly didn't qualify as talking to the company. I got in a conversation with both Bargob and Rob where they both consistently belittled the experience I'd been going through. Having a rather traumatic experience meant nothing to them. They didn't even offer sympathy, even if they had still decided
what
not
is
to
your
let me
favorite
return,
body
they could have at least
fluid and
acknowledged
why? I like tears because crying is actually really cathartic for me. I don't get to cry as much as I used to. Which on the one hand is showing that I am getting more resilient to life. But sometimes I do, like, I am stressed out and I want to cry and I can't. So, never heard of that guy either. I'm not seeing anything particularly weird about the Revenge of the Sith script, but when I look at it on the Discord link, I'll see what I can find about that. I'm curious.
My situation was rough, so while I don't want to accuse anyone behind Channel Awesome as being outright homophobic, they certainly don't care about the well-being of queer people. No, dude, your sexuality is not their concern. That's none of their business.
What about
I mean, you said
least
it yourself.
favorite bodily fluid? Probably thinking about. There's a lot to choose from. Which one was I thinking about before I said there's a lot to choose from? Oh yeah, when you like, sometimes if you throw up and it just burns really bad. Like it just burns, it coats the whole inside of your esophagus with just fire and death and acid. I hate that. Bile. Cerebrospinal fluid, can't walk or breathe without it. That's your favorite.
You were clearly going through a rough time in your personal life. You were going through school. You were coming to terms with your sexuality. You were dealing with abusive people outside of the site. You rarely uploaded any videos. And by your own admission, what you did upload wasn't even good or gaining any views. Content creation was not a priority for you, and you could not fulfill your duties to the site. This
Stomach
is on
acid.
you, man. I mean, this has nothing to do with you being gay. You're just trying to shift blame here. After spending an hour repeatedly telling me none of that was a good enough excuse, Rob and Bargov told me they would discuss with Mashad whether I would be allowed to return to the site, but it was clear from their language it wasn't actually being considered. Well, you don't know that for sure. I brought up what had happened on Twitter, as I was obviously furious at having had such an abusive conversation with people I had until then looked up to. They then told me that those tweets meant I wouldn't be allowed back on, as if anyone would believe for a second they actually considered it. Okay, so instead of waiting for management to make an informed decision on what to do with you, you just decided to go and make a scene on Twitter and air details of a private conversation in public, so the company saw that you were probably more trouble than you were worth, and they didn't bother reinstating you. That's on you. That's your fault. Sorry. It sucks that you went through such a tough time, pal, but this here is a business, and if you're not productive and you're not uploading anything, then there's
Not
no
productive,
reason to keep you
whoa.
around. They're not your parents. They're not going to coddle you and constantly be on you to produce content. Like, Topher, make sure you have this video out. Topher, come on, here comes the tunnel. Like, they're not going to do that, bro. Like, sorry you had to learn a lesson the hard way, but that's life, man. I also find it hilarious that this dude says he came out of the closet in a rural, overly far-right
It's
conservative
hydrochloric
environment, but the worst
acid,
memory he
mucus,
has
and
from this time
potassium
is
mixed
Channel Awesome
together.
management not feeling
See, it's
sorry for him.
hydrochloric acid. That's why
Really?
it's so awful.
Okay, dude, whatever you say.
It's like drinking hydrochloric acid from a jug, you know? And America.
Alright, so
I've
right
never
off the
even
bat,
heard of
this
that
guy
guy.
tanks his own credibility by starting off his segment with something stupid. He goes over a bunch of things that Channel Awesome allegedly promised him, stating that through a Skype call, Mashad promised they would be promoted routinely at the top of the site's webpage to draw eyes to their content, and Doug would do a video promoting them and their videos for that week, and it would also be cross-posted with his Nostalgia Critic video for that week. However, it only ended up happening once, and he was upset with how Doug promoted him, stating that Doug talked about anime as if it was beneath him.
Whatever. Yeah, that's him being the nostalgia critic, I think. That's just like Doug likes anime. Doug watches anime. So, I think this was just the nostalgia critic being a shithead for laughs.
You serious?
Serious?
You read that right. In a document detailing accounts of abuse and sexual misconduct, a grown man is going to whine about how someone didn't promote anime very well. Are you for real? That's a legitimate problem. God. He says it was like Doug was being forced to do something he had no interest in. You ever think he probably was? I mean, Doug has his own videos to make, dude. And what do you want him to do? Like, hold your hand, feed you your bottle, change your diapers? On top of this, for no discernible reason, once the first run for us new producers was over, they incorporated all of the already established well-known producers who clearly had no need for it. Doug never again did any promotion for anyone, and being featured did very little for us in the long term. We would receive sponsored giveaways to go along with being featured from companies like Amazon, Humble Bundle, Gamefly, and others. Did this happen? No. Instead, when it came time for our producer spotlight, we were told that the giveaway was optional and that if we wanted to do it, we had to arrange it ourselves. There was no sponsorship, simply a free gift card. Oh wow, you mean I actually had to make an effort to promote myself? How dare they? Everyone would visit the Channel Awesome studio to meet with Doug and Rob to discuss how to grow in the Channel Awesome community and develop an audience there. Did this happen? No. No offers were ever extended. No further word on this was ever heard. When I brought it up with them, I was ignored. New custom headers for the new Channel Awesome website will be created to reflect the producers posting videos that day, creating a dynamic eye catch that indirectly promotes everyone. Did this happen? No. Only after asking about it a few weeks later was I informed that it was being scaled back to only feature big producers like Linkara, Brad, etc. Then it was suddenly dropped. Mike said that he would be hands-on with us initially to help with our integration to the site and make sure we became members of the community. Did this happen? No. Instead, Mike would always respond to my questions and concerns as if I was annoying and or not worth his time. He always had his Skype sent to unavailable, and if he responded at all, it was not until I prodded him multiple times to do so. Eventually, he ducked out of blah, 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 blah. All right, man, look. In situations like this, the words of the late Samuel Goldwyn are forever on my mind. A verbal contract is not worth the paper it's written on. You have to get the...
What?
You have to get these things in writing, people. You just have to. You got to get a contract. You need document.
Wow, that phrase took me a minute to figure out. A verbal contract is not worth the paper it's written on. I was thinking about that for like a good 7 seconds after he said it. Before I understood it, I was like, huh? I mean, what's spinal fluid for anyways? Why do we need fluid? Everything needs fluid.
For circumstances in order to win fights. It's hard to tell when somebody's going to do something wrong in advance, which is why it's always a good idea to build a habit of keeping good documentation. I mean, it's easy to ask the person you talk to for an email laying out the terms of your arrangement. That way, when they fail to deliver on a promise, you can point to the agreement and say, hey, you promised me this thing on this day at this time, and you didn't deliver. Give me what you promised me, or I'm going to take legal action. Get stuff in writing, guys. Punishing from the top down minus the bottom. I would have thought that, as with anything in life, us newest in the fold would have faced the strictest enforcement for violating the rules set out for us. After all, we were the rookies. We were the ones who needed to be made to adapt to their way of doing things since we never had before. What do you think this is, the Marines? Why would you think a video aggregator website would operate like that? Instead, on multiple occasions, Greg, possibly via Mike, doled out the harshest punishments on the veteran producers who, in every case, had never once stepped out of line. As has been well documented, yeah, if it's already been documented, you don't need to repeat it. Chaos D1 faced the harshest penalty, being removed from the site for being 1 day late with his second upload for the month, even though he had been with the site for years and had never been late before. Tom White also experienced the same treatment when matters in his private life also caused him to be 1 day late. It's funny because these two actually kind of brought that on themselves, but we'll get to that in a moment. I cannot fathom how such treatment is justifiable or to any extent even intelligent. Where is the value in demoralizing the producers?
I don't even know those creators who brought up like Chaos something and whatever.
Brand with the most impeccable track records of reliability. What sort of people would blatantly disrespect and demean those who they should ostensibly value? Well, yeah, management is going to be harder on seasoned employees when they make stupid mistakes because they are the most experienced and should know better. They'll go easier on newbies because they're new and are just starting out. That's how a business works. One might then, at the very least, expect such obtusely stringent enforcement to happen across the board. Because if such productive members of the site would face such withering penalties, everyone else would too, right? One would be wrong. In fact, I heard from several smaller producers that they went several months in a row without publishing a video, didn't hear a word from Greg, and remained on the site with no acknowledgement whatsoever. And he gives no examples whatsoever. Doug and only Doug. While it has become a very apparent reality that Channel Awesome only cares about Doug Walker and his series somewhat recently, this has been the case since we were brought on the site, if not earlier. Yeah, Doug is the face of the company. He has the most popular show.
He's the cash cow.
Are going to advertise him the most. Near the beginning of our tenure, I was taking a look at the new website where I noticed a sidebar widget titled Popular Videos. Not surprisingly, all of the top videos were Nostalgia Critic episodes with maybe a Linkara video poking in once or twice. Yeah, again, the Nostalgia Critic, most popular show. In addition, this widget was placed above the daily video site.
A lot of people only came to the website for the Nostalgia Critic, so it makes sense that algorithmically calculating what are the most popular videos on the site they're all going to be Nostalgia Critic.
Meaning people were more likely to click away from the page featuring our videos and just watch an old video of Doug. I contacted Greg about this and questioned the purpose of advertising Doug when the overwhelming majority of people coming to the site so primarily for him. You just answered your own question, buddy. Doug is the most popular contributor to the site. People come to the site to see him, so they're going to advertise him the most. They're going to advertise all of the videos that get the most clicks and the producers that make them the most money. That's how a business works. Yeah, this dude is coping big time. He hasn't listed anything abusive or horrible. He just whinges on and on about how he was barely promoted. Like he says it himself, he never personally suffered any direct abuse from the leadership at Channel Awesome. He just didn't receive any real aid. So he probably thought that just being affiliated with Channel Awesome was enough and expected them to do everything for him, and he didn't really want to work to promote himself. I mean, no company is going to advertise someone the viewer doesn't care about because they're not going to make any money.
Yeah, being hosted on the site is enough. If you make content, like, they had a good deal. If you just make a video every 2 weeks, if you get your video out, then they'll let you stay on the website, even if you don't do particularly well. And so then it's on you to figure out how to you network with the other people, you do collabs, you figure out how to get your name out there. And they did a lot of collabs back then. That was how they did it. And Nostalgia Critic did a whole lot of collabs with a lot of the creators on the site. So he did his part.
He just comes off as bitter because Doug and the other producers were more popular than he was. Besides, I highly doubt being featured more would have even benefited him in the long run. Not to sound mean, but looking this dude up on YouTube, his channel is pretty much dead. His last upload was in 2020, and the view count barely breaks 1,000 on his recent uploads. And his Patreon isn't much better. He only has about 19 of them. And he doesn't have the excuse of Channel Awesome holding him back anymore. So, I don't
19
know, man,
is
but it
more
looks
than
like
I have.
The reason you weren't featured was just because your videos simply weren't that interesting. Oh well. He's long given up on the whole internet reviewer shtick by now, so here's hoping he found something more useful to do with his time.
He still has patrons, even though he hasn't made a video in 3 years.
John Burkhart, Chaos D1. Witnessed several contributors get unceremoniously removed from the site after the Blistered Thumbs Channel Awesome merger without directly informing any of them. Had to personally inform one of them myself. Yeah, that sucks. Sorry to hear about that. Had a sudden 1 video per month policy implemented on us, which was later changed to a 2 video per month policy, roughly late 2016, early 2017. Enforcement of this rule seemed random and arbitrary. Well, yes, of course. How dare the video production site that I'm partnered with is asking me to produce videos. What are you trying to convince us of? Obviously they...
Yeah, like, you don't want to have a website to promote people's content if they're not making content. It's just going to look like you have a bunch of dead people on your site, you know? That's a problem. I've seen other websites like that, and that is a problem with some of them. People just stop uploading, and then you have just, like, a graveyard of content.
They want steady traffic to the site, and that happens when producers are making videos for them. Removed from scheduled access after being 1 day late with a video due to wife's medical emergencies, despite having provided 4 videos to the site in the previous month and never having missed a regularly scheduled post for over 5 years. Well, you're being a tad disingenuous here, because in the chat log you provided, Greg states that you never contacted him to let him know that you couldn't meet the site's monthly quota because of your wife's medical emergencies. And you admit to this. Greg says you only had 1 video for April and never contacted him to let him know that you couldn't get the second video out in time, and you said, my bad on at least not letting you know I had nothing for April. So that's partially on you. Really, it sounds to me like you got too lax with your duties and figured they wouldn't enforce the rules as hard as you thought, but they did, and it caught you off guard. When discussing reinstatement with Greg, was told to wait a few days before reinstating me and claiming it was my 1 strike, only to receive a message several days later via Skype telling me, unfortunately, we are going to part ways with you, without discussing anything with me beforehand. When lamenting the sudden change, was shown a photo of my Twitter account where I asked if anyone still watched me on Channel Awesome as I was recently unlisted, and Greg thought I posted the message out of spite after talking with him and being told to wait, despite it having been posted several hours before our conversation. Well, sounds to me like some lessons can be learned here.
Yeah, don't post shit before you have a conversation. Have the conversation first.
Lesson 1. You people really need to stop airing dirty laundry. You shouldn't always publicly air grievances when you're having personal issues. Whether it be with a person or a company, sharing every problem that you have to the world isn't always the best idea because people can just take it the wrong way. Probably would have been a better idea to talk to Greg first before going on Twitter. Lesson 2, choose your words carefully. Because you did yourself no favors when you said, I wanted to see if it was worth it trying to stay on. I mean, that sounds kind of antagonistic in this context. I mean, you're propping yourself up as this reliable and dependable company man who never missed a single upload, and now you're talking as though the site was never worth your time. Honestly, reading more about this guy's Twitter exchanges kind of makes me think he never really even cared about being on the site to begin with and wanted to be kicked off. Because in response to his booting, he actually went online and said this. You know, I was shocked yet not surprised, but I knew how defensive they were over their reputation. I was aware of writing, did anyone even know I still listed videos on CA would make them think I was calling their site irrelevant? Why do you think I wrote it that way? Okay, so you were just asking to be let go then? Because most companies in the real world won't like it when their producers disrespect their brand in public.
Like all of these are really interesting because all of these are, these guys don't look as good as people thought they did.
They're still affiliated with them. You can get fired for that, but I never even mentioned them directly in the tweet. Some of the replies didn't even know what CA stood for. California, Canada, Computer Associates. Yet they're so goddamned insecure they made that tweet the deciding factor. Dude, in your last tweet, you literally asked, did anyone even know I still listed videos on CA? Last I checked, you don't list videos to California or Canada or Computer Associates. Like, who else did you think they thought you were talking about? Come on, man. You screwed up and you're mad at them for it. Just own it. Oh, and I love the little bitter jab he takes at them at the end here. Burn in your newfound obscurity. Right, and this is coming from the clinically depressed nobody creator and failed YouTuber who had to beg for money because he's so broke he couldn't afford to travel to see his own family. And I'm not insulting him. Those are all his own words.
I'm liking this video so far. I want to watch the rest. Looks like he has a part 2 out right now. And this is part 2 came out 2 months ago. This one came out 3 months ago. I wonder if he has any other videos on his channel. I'm curious. Cause this is like a video I would have made. Like I kind of made a video like this. It was less focused, but I made one on Alex Day.
Yeah. If Channel Awesome is the pot, then you, my friend, are the kettle calling them black. And the rest of his grievances are just him crying about Doug using an unfunny 2-second clip of him in a movie. It's not important, so we'll just move on.
Thank God. If I had to take any more whiteness, I don't know what the hell would have happened.
Drop that 0 and give it.
No, it's too late. It's too late.
I love that video. Cool as ice.
Tom White. So this is another man I've never heard of complaining about another man I've never heard of getting kicked off the site. Apparently somebody named Mike Dodd was removed from the site without being told, and he had to be informed by this guy personally.
I've heard of Mike Dodd,
This caused him to lose his enthusiasm for the site, yet he stayed on for so many years. He also includes a link to a recording of a Skype call that has Mike Michaud's voice in it without his consent, which is a federal crime in 11 states, by the way, so make of that what you will. Video game contest. I'd been talking to Michaud about running a trivia contest on my channel, and he liked the idea. I was going to offer my own prize, but Michaud insisted on using a Sega Genesis he had lying around the office as a prize. I was reluctant because at this point his reputation was that he could be untrustworthy about this sort of thing, but I said sure. So you knew this guy was unreliable, yet you trusted him anyway? The contest ended, I contacted the winner and got their address. The winner was in Russia, and immediately I was nervous that would make the game system expensive to ship, and I had a feeling Michaud would try to
I think we should make another, because he's talking about he was talking about like him like publishing a voice recording of a guy without his consent, which does get me thinking. I've been thinking about this before, but now that he brings it up, it would be a good idea on the Discord to have 2 voice channels. One that's just a general voice channel, and then one that's specifically for streams, so that people know. Because I've had this before, like people come in and then we have to tell them, by the way, we're streaming right now. So it's it would be a good idea to have one that's just for stream, so that if people go into that one, then they know that it's being streamed, so that they just know before they even go into it. So nobody has to be like informed, just in case you didn't realize.
Tell me that wasn't the deal or something. So I forwarded the address to Mashad.
Yeah, so go ahead
He
and
didn't bat
set
an
that
eye at
up.
the
That would
fact
be a
it was
good thing.
Russia, and told
Thank
me
you.
it would be sent out immediately. I followed up later, and he told me it was sent out. Months went by, and the winner never received the prize. I asked Mashad about it, and he ignored my messages. The winner told me that if it was mailed out, the post office would have given him some kind of customs number, even if there was no tracking information, and asked if I could be provided. I asked Mashad and got no reply. I was in a really difficult position because I didn't want to badly represent Channel Awesome and my boss by telling the winner it's not my fault, but I was given nothing to work with. Eventually, after like 6 months with no prize,
already have
I had
one
to
made for
apologize to the winner
podcasts?
and send him an Amazon gift card
Oh, okay.
instead. Years
can
later, I
convert
sent
that
the
one
winner an
into this.
email again and still
All
no
right.
prize. If Mashad actually did deliver the prize as promised, my best guess is that the package got returned and he never said a word to me about it, even after repeated follow-ups. Yeah, sorry pal, but no. Nope. You cannot pile this all on Mike Mashad. This is your fault too. You share part of the blame. This is your contest on your channel, and you made a promise to your fan, and ultimately you were the one who did not deliver. Mashad clearly didn't send the thing out. Okay, so if he's not coming through for you, fix the problem yourself. Stop relying on him. Do something about it. Go to your local flea market or thrift store or pawn shop. Pick up a Genesis there. Or maybe reach out to another gamer on the site and ask them. Or, I don't know, go on eBay, see if you can find one at a cheaper price. I mean, you gotta do something here, man. You could have easily solved this problem yourself. Instead, you just sat around and waited on this for 6 months, hoping that a guy that you knew was unreliable would save you, but instead ended up being unreliable. And after all of that, you just gave the guy a gift card? Well, shows how much you care about your own fans. But that is just pathetic. I mean, this guy sat back and did nothing and just hoped the problem would solve itself. Take some responsibility, bro. Idiot. My booting. Alright, then he talks about his booting, that he ended up having to move. I contacted Greg to...
Mashad, the more he goes into this, like, Mashad is not looking very good still. Mashad is the one character who just consistently seems awful from start to finish.
to let him know the situation, and I said I think I'd be able to do 2 videos a month during October and November, but because of the move I might not be able to. He said that was fine. Okay, I actually still managed to put out 2 in October as usual and only 1 in November, so I still did alright. In December I finished the first video early in the month, but at the end of the year I ended up not finishing my video until the 30th, but had some issues with the final product that needed to be fixed. Seeing that I needed a little extra time to finish and upload it to YouTube, I scheduled the video for January 1st instead of the 31st. I figured it wouldn't be a big deal because I'd known other producers who had been lax, and I figured since I gave Greg a heads up about my situation, it would be easily understandable that the move was still affecting me. I honestly didn't think he'd even noticed. Yeah, big mistake there, man. Never be lazy, regardless of how long you've been there. I was already removed from the site, and my login was revoked the next day. I've been with Channel Awesome for 6 years. I've been completely professional and reliable, never argumentative even for a moment.
See,
I did volunteer work for them and their charity.
honestly, like, that's still bullshit. Them just, like, removing him just suddenly because he missed a deadline. Like, at least give the dude a warning. At least be like, bro, you can't be missing this deadline. But yeah, this is just not, this is I think going way too far. Just, oh, you're done. I don't think, usually places don't work like this. They give you, they like actually try to, because, you know, you don't want to have to fire someone for a minor infraction and then you got to find someone new who might do the same thing, you know. You just, it's too much hassle, so you want to be able to. But the problem is that it's not like that on this website. They're not incentivized to do that, because on this website it's all about server costs and blah blah blah, and if the person's not holding up their end, then they're useless. But still, it's just, yeah, inhumane to just be so cavalier.
Live streams, and they removed me instantly the moment I was late on one video after I already warned them of my situation.
Yeah, that was pretty arbitrary. They should have given him alarm bells. Yeah, like multiple, like at least 2. This is your final warning. That's like getting expelled for forgetting to do the reading homework in the first grade. Yeah, yeah.
I actually think the only reason I got removed at all was because after I warned them of my move, they were waiting to see if I messed up so they can remove me instantly. Other producers had not produced content in months and never got removed. Okay, and who are they? And sorry, but no, I gotta call BS here, man. You're not being honest. Your chat log contradicts you. You see, he's wording this as though he warned management about his move well in advance and they kicked him off the site anyway. However, he informed them that he would be out of action for 2 months, but it was really 3. And Greg says right there that you never contacted him to let him know that you would be late for a 3rd month. And the big kicker is that this guy doesn't even have an excuse. He says, this is the first misstep since I've been with you guys in 6 years.
Yeah, it should have been a warning. If it's the first misstep in 6 years, and it was a misstep, it should have been a warning. Yeah, he goes, rules are rules with this. No one is getting special treatment because it would be unfair. You know. But it looks like they're ready to add him back on the site. But, you know, it's that thing, like, I wouldn't have even wanted to come back on the site if they removed me without even giving me a warning. Like, it's common courtesy.
So he just flat out admitted that he was the one in the wrong. I mean, heck, Greg even states that if you weren't able to meet the 2 video per month quota, to reach out to him and let him know. And the fact that he said that implies he was perfectly willing to work with you in case something in his personal life inconvenienced your video output. You just needed to talk to him, but you didn't. So, sorry. I mean, Greg seems pretty reasonable to me. I don't buy this sob story, man. This whole bit is disingenuous. It basically sounds like he fell into the same problem that Chaos D1 had. Like he got too lazy with his duties and figured they wouldn't enforce the rules as hard as he thought, but they did, and it caught him off guard. That's not abuse. That's the company being strict with their rules and you being lax with them. Oh well. Chaos D1... Oh my god. Speak of the devil. Enough. That is enough. I'm tired of hearing about this guy. I get it. He thought he was removed from the site unfairly. That's been made abundantly clear to me. He already has an entire segment dedicated to him. This is the 3rd time I'm hearing about this.
I like some of these
dude.
editing effects.
I mean, isn't that
too.
enough? Sheesh. Did anybody proofread this? I mean, this isn't new information. You're literally padding this whole thing out with stuff I already know just to make it longer. Stop. Anyway, he left the site after that.
So we continued in part 2. So this was the low tier producers. This was a good video. I like this video. I'm gonna watch the second part probably right after this on my own time. But yeah, good choice. Thanks for letting me know, whoever it was who let me know about this video. I'm gonna watch the rest and see if he has any other videos. But yeah, I think that's it for videos on this stream. I don't feel like watching anything else. I doubt that very much is gonna yield from the chat after this point, so might be worth it to just end it now. I guess I'll wait for 3 minutes. End it at 10:05. See if anyone has anything else to say. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith, I'll check that out. He has 4 parts to the series. All right, I'm excited. Let's see what else there is there. But yeah, Revenge of the Sith. Curious about what's in that. Could hop on the server voice chat. Okay. Might as well. For a little bit. Opening Discord. The transsexual revolution. There we go. Will you be watching that Glenn Glinstone video? Not on stream. I think I'll be watching that on my own time. I thought it was Greg Glintstone. I remember there was that Christian guy named Josh Feuerstein, and somebody pointed out that Feuerstein in German translates to firestone, and that it was the German word for flint, so you could actually kind of think of him as Josh Flintstone.
I've been. It's funny because I had to Antarctic Kunst. That's all I have to say.
Sorry, what?
Antarctic Kunst.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Degenerate art.
Are you on fucking pain pills right now? What's going on?
I don't know. Do I sound weird?
Kind of. Yeah, you're kind of slurring your words a little bit.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting.
I can hear you a little bit better now.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so degenerate art, which is the part of the topic of the golden age of grotesque, is called, in German, which is where it was coined, Antarctic Kunst.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that